The audio working?
Yes.
I didn't hear you. Did you roll call yet?
Not yet.
Apologies. Oh, sorry.
I'm calling this meeting to order. This is a regular business meeting of the Redmond City Council held on Tuesday, April 21st, 2026, commencing at 7 o'clock p.m. I will call a roll starting with Council President Stewart.
Here.
Council Vice President Nueva Camina.
Here.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Here.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Here.
Councilmember Parsi.
Here.
Councilmember Prakria.
Here.
Councilmember Stoney.
Here.
Council President Stewart will make a motion to amend the agenda to add an item B to new business for the adoption of an ordinance for an interim official control regulating commercial drone land use.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As was stated, I move to amend the agenda to add item B to new business for the adoption of an ordinance for an interim official control regulating commercial drone land uses.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote starting with Council President Stewart.
Aye.
Council Vice President Nueva Camina.
Aye.
Councilmember Forsyth.
Aye.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Aye.
Councilmember Parsi.
Aye.
Councilmember Prakria.
Aye.
And Councilmember Stoney.
Aye.
Thank you all. The first item on the agenda, you're good. The first item on the agenda is items from the audience. I have the sign-in sheet for members of the public to speak tonight. When I read your name, you'll come up to the podium and have 3 minutes to address the council. Council members generally will not respond to comments or questions directly at the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to email the council anytime at mayorcouncil@redmond.gov. The views stated by members of the public do not represent the opinion of the City of Redmond, and as a reminder, RCW 29B45010 prohibits any public comment during the council meeting in support or opposition of ballot propositions, measures, or candidates. All comments must pertain to the City of Redmond business as indicated on the sign-in sheet. There are 19 people signed up to speak in person and 4 people signed up to speak remotely. When I'll call like the first 4 people, and I'll keep doing that so you know when your time is coming up. So we'll start with Faith 2386, then Wolf Adriatico, then Ruth Kenote, and then Starlin Stout.
Hey there. It's been a while since I've been here. Life has been steadily getting the better of me this year, and though I'm starting to dig myself out of the little pile, it's slow going. I'm sure you've missed my rants so much, but fear not, I've returned in all my working class queer glory. I don't like this city. I don't like this whole side of Lake Washington. I don't exactly keep that under wraps. I'll complain about everything here to anyone that'll listen. The air, the sounds, the people driving past in souped up sports cars causing my ears to hurt while we're scared of your stupid noise ordinance making us unable to simply play music. The fact that I can't walk into a single business anywhere for any reason without worrying about getting fleeced for money I don't have. The downtown that makes me feel like I'm trespassing for existing while making less than $1 quadrillion an hour. The almost crystalline extraction of everything that makes Seattle so depressing and lonely, save for one lone inclusion, until last year, that is. Here's what I think is a borrowed observation from a borrowed observation, so I'll credit Ian Danskin for at least putting the idea in my head. The meat of it is, fascists love capital. It's one of the most brilliant laundering schemes we've ever seen. Fascist goals, first and foremost, are to separate us from them, with us getting progressively smaller and smaller as there's less them to separate. Capitalism is a tool, first and foremost, and like all tools, human and otherwise, that fascism elevates and uses, it will eventually discard it once it too becomes a blemish. But it produces 2 things beautifully: hierarchy and deniability. Capital pools at the top, where all the rich need to do is let it accumulate while their lives get better and better with the exponential growth of their earnings. As the companies and people in the middle of the ladder start desperately looking for any way to make more, to appease the people above them, they find new footholds and new jumping off points on the backs of the people below them. So the people below just keep getting pushed down, down, and down forever. Deniability is the most interesting one, though. It's a mask. It's a way of laundering your ideas, values, and feelings through something that seems palatable, and the ability to very easily go, no, I wasn't trying to do that, as you displace and mistreat people who just so happen to be of a certain race, gender, or sexuality. It lets people toddle around in the world content that they're good people who are moral and upstanding while standing directly on the backs of so many, all in the name of good business. Redmond as a whole is a capitalist hellhole, endlessly trying to use ever-increasing amounts of money to make some mockery of functional government, pretended facsimiles of culture and leisure that are only palatable to people over the age of 50 who don't remember what it was like to be real after a lifetime of having their souls beaten out of them. This is why we're mad about the Firehouse, or at least why I'm so mad that it makes me drive hours back and forth just to support these people that I only met twice before coming here. This is such a clear signal to me that the authentic, queer, free-for-all punk rock atmosphere that the Firehouse sheltered is no longer welcome in Redmond. That culture is irrelevant to your government's mission. This is why I was pissed when I heard of the idea of charging for non-drop-in teen services, putting up yet another paywall to every single facet of this city. But above all, I am so proud of our group. They didn't hesitate for a second when their third space was shut down. They got up here and started yelling in these chambers, on the steps outside, in shows that they run themselves, right outside the fence that you put up to keep them out of their home, 40 feet from the front door of the place that saved them. That spirit is why I'm here and why I'm still here to yap at you every now and then. Have a good one.
Next is Wolfie Adriatico, then Ruth Keynote, then Starlin Stout, then Aaron Hamilton.
First off, I second every word of that. I advise council to pull item number 26058 from the consent agenda pending further consideration. I ask that it be amended to postpone the demolition of the old Firehouse Teen Center and that the city undergo the design phase concurrent with community engagement prior to permanent destructive action. With the inflating cost of this project resulting from both the choice to rebuild opposed to renovate and negligence in maintaining OFH, clearly evidenced by the inadequate budget assigned thereto, there is a reasonable concern that the city will deem the project financially inviable once it begins the design phase, or that the city will bait and switch the community by deciding that an on-site rebuild, as council promised, is inferior to relocation to, say, Marimore Village. Deceptive political maneuvers such as this are not uncommon, and the city has used similar tactics over and over throughout this process. There's undeniable animosity between this government and the governed. OFH built trust between us, but the unfortunate reality is that repeated transgressions have eroded that trust. We cannot trust the city to keep it to its word anymore, not after the 1,000th time that it's broken it. And in conclusion, by undergoing non-destructive actions first, planning, engagement, design, the city can show good faith and a dedication to keeping the promise of building a teen center with teen input at the forefront. Thank you.
Next is Ruth Keynote, then Starlin Stout, then Aaron Hamilton, then Corvus Denny.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Ruth Keynote. I use she, they pronouns. I come to you on behalf of the residents of my community regarding the recent decision to implement a 2-hour parking limit in the Mary Moore neighborhood of Redmond. This decision has caused significant distress to both myself and my fellow community members. This change would be particularly challenging for the 4 apartment complexes located in this area: Spectra, the Spoke, the Piper, and Bell Mary Moore. The residents who reside in these communities are already struggling with extremely limited parking options. With this new restriction, daily life will become increasingly difficult for these communities, which rely on access to reliable parking for their daily activities. Residents are already prohibited from using several of the existing parking facilities, including the Marymoor train station, the Spectra retail garage, the Redmond Community Center, the Lake Sammamish Trailhead parking lot, the Whole Foods Plaza parking lot, and all of the retail parking that exists on 176th Ave and 65th Street. This short-sighted decision will only further complicate residents' access to parking. This lack of parking availability disrupts not just personal convenience, but also impacts essential tasks such as commuting to work, running errands, and maintaining quality of life. In an area that continues to grow, it is imperative for city planners to ensure that residential needs are met, particularly when it comes to something as basic as parking. To approve the building of so many residences without also requiring adequate parking was not a decision made in the best interests of Redmond residents. In a day and age where so many households require the use of one or more vehicle to simply get to work, the idea of building this neighborhood with intentionally inadequate parking in order to encourage alternative forms of transport is unfortunately unrealistic, and the local residents are now bearing the cost of this poor planning. To further complicate an already heavily restricted situation, especially when not a single community member was consulted or considered in the matter, is unconscionable. I have created a petition on change.org rallying the voices of my community and have already received 175 signatures standing with me in solidarity. We urge the city officials of Redmond to reconsider this parking policy. An equitable solution could involve reassessing parking availability in the neighborhood and exploring alternative measures to manage parking demand without imposing harsh restrictions on residents. Potential Potential solutions could include implementing residential parking permits, expanding existing free parking facilities, or lifting the restrictions of neighborhood lots for overflow parking. I hope the council can understand the pressing needs of the Marymore neighborhood and will work with its residents towards a sustainable parking solution. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you keep the papers that I have distributed. On the second page, you can see testimonials from my community submitted on change.org. Thank you very much for your time.
Next is Starlyn Stout, then Aaron Hamilton, then Corvus Denny, then Onyx Griffin.
Hello, my name is Star, and I'm a public historian conducting research and collecting oral histories about the old Firehouse. So far, I have interviewed 38 individuals with several more scheduled, 9 teens, both past and present, 12 who were teens and then returned as staff, and I've also gotten 8 family and community members who were personally invested, and 8 city officials from the building's history. The sense of pride and the stories that have come out of this building, they reach far beyond Redmond and should be a source of pride for the city. I don't live in Redmond, but after this project and this experience, I feel like I should. In all honesty, the old Firehouse would not have been my scene as a teenager, but my daughter, she would thrive there. Few places exist where we live, where she feels welcome, where she feels accepted and comfortable. I am doing this documentary project now because someone heard me speak at my city council meeting advocating for a place like OFH that I didn't know existed. Only what you have in Redmond is much more impressive than anything that I imagined being possible. I want communities all over Washington, all over the nation, to know that a place like the OFH can exist and can be possible anywhere for kids like mine. The kids that I have met feel like an extension of my own, and that's how they should be made to feel by this community. And I want to tell them that the people I've talked to are so proud of them, and they've really done the OFH proud as an institution and how they've conducted themselves and continued to fight for this thing that they love, for their home. The decision before you is not an obvious one, and I hope that you consider extending the time frame to look at all of the things before you before making such a drastic decision, because once something like the OFH is gone, you can't rebuild it, you can't restore it. And it is something that is unique and very special to Redmond. A city that's responsible for so many progressive programs and have helped a marginalized and vulnerable demographic, they need you now more than ever, this generation of young people. And they need that sense of place that's worthy of the stories that they will one day tell. Thank you.
Next is Aaron Hamilton, then Corvus Denny, then Onyx Griffin, then Chester Anderson.
Hello, I'm here to talk about the Smash River Trail and how increasingly dangerous it is becoming because of cyclists. I would like to say, before everybody calls me anti-cyclist, I have been an endurance athlete for over a decade, competing in Ironmans. I ride my bike, I run, I swim. I put over 50,000 miles on that trail alone on my bikes. And so I'm a cyclist, but it is getting way too dangerous out there. I emailed you all a PDF earlier today that gave some data to show from last year of Strava segments that have leaderboards, which is, kind of their way of competing for king of the mountain and queen of the mountain and stuff like that. So it's a constant competition to beating each other. And these are segments within the downtown corridor, not out in the boonies, but right here, right behind this building. And there's not one person on those lists that have gone under 20 miles an hour or 22 miles per hour. The fastest have been 25, 24 miles per hour. This is insane. And I've also included photos of injuries that I've sustained by getting hit by a cyclist that are being unsafe, reckless, and going over the speed limit. And even to this day, I'm still not able to fully extend this arm because of getting hit by a cyclist. This is becoming an increasing problem. I'm starting to not want to use the trail anymore, but I don't really have any options because I don't want to go out on the streets. I know the trail is King County, but this is going through our city, and you all have contacts more than I do, and your voice is much louder with King County council members than mine. But something needs to be done to slow these cyclists down through this corridor. We have a lot of blind corners, and they don't say on your left, which is the most easiest thing, but I'm tired of getting hit. I'm tired of the close calls. And if I had it my way, I would put speed bumps throughout the entire section. And that's me coming from a cyclist. But this is becoming an increasing problem. And with World Cup coming in, we're only going to see more people out on the trail. It's spring and summer, so the population is going to go out and enjoy this trail, and it's going to be even more. And the most unpredictable thing on this planet are people. We're talking about kids. And I've seen these cyclists get very close, going well over 20, passing children that are not being held by their hands by their parents when they should be, And when I see that, I tell them to slow down, and their response to me is, well, you don't want me to swear anymore, so I won't, but it's the F word, a lot of Fs and Fs and Fs. And I'm tired, so I really hope we can do something about that.
Thank you. Next is Corvus Denny, then Onyx Griffin, then Chester Anderson, then Emmeline Berg.
If you have a young child with you, I'd advise covering their ears for this. Council members, why do you laugh in the face of such broken men when all they want is for you to understand that the world they live in is solely for you, but no world is safe for the scum beneath your boot? The ones who have been screaming and crying and begging, why can't they just be like all the rest? Why can't they all just shut their mouths, keep it quiet, and pipe down? Do you think yourselves as gods, giving only judgment and empty nods? Do you take enjoyment in it, seeing all the people who sit watching you lie with all that misplaced pride, feeding into the only thing America will ever provide? The thought of that makes all us urchins sick. We've come to hate you and your little fixes. In the beeping of this stupid bell, you've deemed us dogs in what was already hell. We are fighting for our home while you just roll your eyes and not even say your own. Why would we ever respect you when all you do is what the other big men do? Do you think we're that disgusting? And I want you to look them in the eyes, goddammit. Do me that one courtesy before taking my home from me. Crushing like a bug beneath your shoe. I hope you know what you're putting us through. I hope you know what you're doing. And that you're not so stupid to defend the side that you're pursuing. And that you have the audacity to not care for who you've ruined with your sacrificial routine and feed more lies into your pretty little machine. The men I spoke of are not men, but are forced to be able running in your pig pen. They are children when not out, crying and screaming at the old, calling them stout. Always fighting for what they believe in is right, the only place that made them feel like they could fight, defending themselves and their friends too. Do you know what you put them through? Do you see what you've cost them? You just see them as another type of gem to shove in your pocket and make another dollar off of. I hate you and your stupid love. You need to know what you're doing. These kids are fighting for their lives, not only here but in their heads and minds. With them being victorious with a battle they fought with their kin, a battle shown on ripped skin of their arms and thighs, hiding every fraction, doing what you'd probably call an overreaction. But whether the option is there, you make them feel guilty for nothing and don't care. Can't you tell these kids are struggling, having so much to be juggling? They're not your court jesters and you are not kings, and even so you don't deserve their performance. You only looked at those you gift awards. I want you to look at them, you fucking cowards. These kids are not yours to look down on, nor anyone's to be frowned upon. They are kids, and yes, they bite back, but where the hell do you think they learned that? I assure you, for as much as I do, I will never support any of you. For as long as you sit in your little chair, if you do nothing but simply declare, you will never be supported by the youth. We need action for our people and the truth. So once more I ask again, why do you laugh in the faces of such broken men?
Next is Onyx Griffin, then Chester Anderson, then Emmeline Berg, then Harris Chanduri.
Hi,
My name is Onyx Griffiths, and I was on the stakeholder group, which felt very rigged, but I'm not here to get into that. What I'm here to point out is that we were given a price point of $9 million for a renovation and a $12 million for a rebuild, which was close enough in price for most of the stakeholders to say rebuild. Yet that's only if you were to build the exact same size of building now, but no building has been planned. So where did that price point come? Why are you demolishing a building before planning out what you are going to do on that space if you are planning to make it the same? It really sounds like your plan is to tear it down and then suddenly claim that it is out of your budget and sell it to developers, which again seems like what was your plan from the beginning because of the lack of transparency and how short notice, which again, I will remind you was around 3 weeks. Aside from being sentimental or screaming about the same things we have all been screaming about, and that has been tearing my brain apart for over a year now, God knows you won't listen to that because you are not listening even today. I am just here to point out the detail that using common sense, the city has been very not transparent and honestly deceitful from the very start, and there is no reason to go forward with demolishing a historical and iconic building. If you want any remaining semblance of the people trusting this council ever again, do not proceed with this demolition because we are your future and we will decide who gets elected. Thank you.
Next is Chester Anderson, then Emmeline Berg, then Harris Chandry, then Sasha Glenn.
Hello, I'm Chester Anderson. I was the first teen regular back at the Firehouse after COVID. I am known as the unofficial Firehouse ambassador. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I am one of the people most knowledgeable about the Firehouse and how it ran in the last few years up until its closure. The city was very opaque and strange about its process with the stakeholder group, but I was not included on that group because there was a lot of back and forth, and again, the city was very opaque about it. Claiming there were reasons that I couldn't be on the stakeholder group that were then it was said, oh, you don't need to, that's not an issue, you can still be on the group. But even that, I still was excluded from the group, which felt very strange. The youngest and most shy and quiet of the teens were picked for the group, and they were vastly outnumbered by adults in that group, which is why Onyx was saying it felt very rigged. It felt very predatory of the city to do that to them, to pick on the youngest members of our group. But I understand a lot of you in the council are new, but we have been begging the city to listen to us for the last year after a very opaque process of shutting down the Firehouse. As you are probably aware, the city held a very insensitive celebration of the Firehouse's legacy this last week, where they had a screen displaying pictures of people at the Firehouse, and I was in a very large number of those photos because, again, I was the Firehouse person. And it was very ironic seeing the mayor and Lorene lie to the group of people there about how well they've been listening to all of us and how much they care about us. And while I was begging them to look me in the eye while they lie to us, and my image was on the screen. I just really want to ask the council members to please remove the item from today's agenda to demolish the building when we don't even have a plan for it, when the city's credibility is already in so much peril. Because, with the spreading of the news of the city's opacity about this process, on the Stranger, Seattle Times, people are beginning to question how trustworthy the city of Redmond really is. And so when your credibility is in question like this, and people are already starting to suspect that you have a conflict of interest, when it comes to the teen center, I really implore you to please reconsider this, stop to actually do what the city of Redmond has been pretending to do by actually listening to the people who have been begging for your attention for the last year. Please remove this item from the agenda. Please start actually listening to us. Thank you.
Next is Emmeline Berg, then Harris Chandry, then Sasha Glenn, then Rebecca Ground something.
Hi. I'm probably one of the few people that actually grew up in Redmond that's around. I do live in the Marymore area, village area, and I work there too. I'm here to talk about the parking. This is very abrupt change. It's had years of unenforced 3-day limit parking, and now it's changing to 2 hours for every single block in the area without notice, which isn't going to impact the residents, the employees in the area. I see businesses that are parking there. I see customers to the businesses. I see people going to the houses of worship there that are there much longer than 2 hours. 2 hours is not long enough to do anything. I also see a lot of impact for the residents. The apartments were approved to be built without enough parking for the residents, and they charge too much for it, and there's no alternatives. People have roommates. You can't have one apartment space per small apartment for most people, and Redmond's not a place that you can live without owning a car to get around and run your daily errands. I appreciate how much work has been done to bring the public transportation and the bike lines and everything through, but this is not going to work. I'm welcome to having, a couple 2-hour blocks next to Spectra, next to the businesses that really need it, the Korma area, that's a cafe, restaurant. That's a reasonable place to have 2-hour parking. But the whole area doesn't work. It's already filled with, parking's already limited to one side of each street, and half of it's been taken up by construction for the last several months anyway. So please reconsider or figure out a better alternative that works for everybody in the area. Thank you for your time.
Next is Harris Chandari, and then Sasha Glenn, and I think Rebecca Groundlock.
Hello, Council. My name is Harris. I want to talk about the recent change to enforce a 2-hour parking limit in the Marymore neighborhood. I live in the Spoke, and the building does not have enough parking spaces for the residents there currently, so I am dependent on street parking. When this goes into effect, I, along with many others, will be left in a position where we will not have an alternative plan for our vehicles. There are no paid parking lots or otherwise any parking lots near that general place that will allow us to park after this goes into effect. Why did the city allow residential buildings to be created without the mandate to provide sufficient parking for tenants who might one day have there? The commercial places that are part of my building already have dedicated parking spots in the same building that I live in, where tenants don't already have enough parking. So I'm confused on who this change actually benefits. Every business or religious establishment in that place already has parking lots. The only people who are truly dependent on street parking are the residents, and they have no other option and are being provided no alternative as the rug gets pulled from under them. I implore you to reconsider this decision, or at least be gracious enough to provide a suitable alternative to the residents who live in that area. Thank you.
Next is Sasha Glenn, then Rebecca, tell me your last name. Grandmont, then Sally Adriatico, then Rosemary Ives.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay, so I'm here to obviously tonight to talk about the old firehouse and this item on the consent agenda, and obviously in line with my fellow community members requesting that you pull item 26058 about the construction demolition contract. I want to take a second to kind of read a quote that was just provided to me recently from former council member Steve Fields, who on his way out of office in December, I believe it was, made a final motion just asking the simple request for the city to take its time before permanently destroying a building that is historic and so important to the community. Take its time to look closer at the numbers, the cost of repair, and whether those repairs can be done over budget years, and to look closer again at that $12 million rebuild number as well. As Onyx pointed out earlier, the rebuild being quoted at $12 million seems quite misleading because it's very unlikely that in 2026, you would want to build just a single-story building there. It's probably going to be 30 million, 40 million for a multi-story building, and that's something that somehow I didn't realize till recently. But former Councilmember Fields said it's important for you guys to think about the fact that council voted to honor the history of the old firehouse and rebuild a new facility on the same site. Honoring that vote only can happen if the city actions follow a thoughtful and complete plan that includes council approval of all actions to achieve those goals. Fragments of a plan is not a plan, okay? So demolishing the building before any actual design has been put together and approved, and any actual budget for that new design has been approved, is premature, and it's quite frankly just absolutely absurdly wrong. And I witnessed at the memorial event put on by the city at OFH just earlier this month, I noticed that the information booth was telling people, we're rebuilding a teen center in the same location. There's no design. That building is still usable. It was deemed safe on your city FAQ website. When you closed it, it said, yes, it's safe for occupancy still. Then you go and you fence it all off recently, and then during your little event, you took the fence down and people were all welcome to sit there. I mean, what is it that with this council? What do we have to do here? The media has covered this at length. There's a documentary being made by a historian. What do we need to do to just get a transparent process of engagement? And what I will say to the new council members is don't let the rest of the council, if they're going to continue to follow this type of behavior, don't let them drag your history, your reputation through the mud, because it's going to go down in the history books, whoever votes to demolish this place.
Please, we don't allow applause in the audience. Thank you. Next is Rebecca. I'm going to not mess up your last name again. Sally Adriatico, Rosemary Ives, and then Rami Major.
Okay, am I good? Okay, hi. It's Rebecca Grandma. I'm here today because the closing of the old firehouse, I feel like it was handled poorly from the very beginning. And the impact on our teens has been far deeper than I believe the city has acknowledged. For many young people, the firehouse wasn't just a building. It was the first place where they felt they truly belonged in our community. When it was abruptly closed, those teens lost a home, and the process that followed only made that loss harder. My son attended OFH, and he was a member of the stakeholder group. The stakeholder group that was formed to discuss the future of the firehouse was presented as a collaborative effort, but in reality, it was overwhelmingly adult-driven. The teens who were included were outnumbered and ultimately unheard. They came into those meetings hoping to advocate for a space that mattered deeply to them. They wanted to repair and reopen the firehouse, but the adults in the room had louder voices. Inviting the teens into a process where their voices were overshadowed didn't empower them, it gave them false hope. Week after week, they sat in the meetings, I sat alongside Noah, grieving the loss of the firehouse, only to be outnumbered by adults who did not share their lived experience of what the space meant. It was harmful, and I believe it was avoidable. I strongly believe the city should reconsider repairing and reopening the firehouse instead of demolishing it. Repairing it would be faster, more cost-effective, and it would preserve a historic building that carries meaning for generations of teens who have walked through those halls. I understand that decisions have already been made, but I would be remiss if I didn't speak up again for the voices that were not heard. The teens who showed up, who continue to show up, who fought to save the firehouse, and who walked away feeling dismissed by the very community that promised to include them. I ask the council to reflect on this process as a whole, not just the outcome, but on the way we involve young people in decisions that directly affect them. If we invite them to the table, we owe them more than symbolic participation. We owe them genuine influence, respect, and the assurance that their voices matter. Thank you.
Next is Sally Adriatico, then Rosemary Ives, then Rami Major, then Gari Suringar Pure.
Oh, hi. Okay. Oh, Ever since Mayor and the Parks Department sprung the firehouse closure on the community and council, we have come here, hearts in our hands, trusting that council would stand up and do what was best for its constituents, not just toe the line and comply. Unfortunately, what's best for the community has been left to a Parks Department who has repeatedly straight up lied and doesn't even know what their website says for their own events to decide. Why is the demolition being rushed like the closure? There are no plans in place yet. It makes no sense. Over and over again, council has been left in the dark while decisions have been made. You weren't told that they were egregiously underfunding upkeep for the firehouse, that they were closing it, that they were auctioning off all the instruments and the equipment. You have power over the budget. That's like the most important thing. The disrespect you've been shown in this firehouse fiasco alone should be unacceptable. There were adults in the stakeholder group who told my child and the other teens that they didn't deserve a teen center and that they shouldn't have a vote because they don't pay taxes. And the good book tells us, for it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest. The fact these kids are here time and again speaking up for the future taxpayers of Redmond, even when they've aged out of teen services already, most of them have, it shows how great they are. And you should kind of follow their lead on it, Tonight, you have another opportunity to start showing your community that trust can be rebuilt. Please pull item number 26058 from the consent agenda pending further consideration. Demand to see plans for the new teen center before demolition approval. Make sure that what you're being told is the truth. I know you all must have a lot on your plates, and this little old building is such a small cog in the great Redmond machine. But every cog must be given the same care or the whole machine breaks apart. Thank you.
Next is Rosemary Ives, then Rami Major, then Gari Suringarpure, then David Morton.
As founder of the old firehouse, tonight I continue my opposition to the demolition of the teen center, substantiated by additional community sentiment, by finishing my testimony from your last meeting when I reminded the council that the teen center is only open just 20 to 25 hours per week. The $9 million remodeling scenario was misrepresented, questionable on safety and cost. It was inflated with expenditures that are not warranted nor required, such as the EV charging stations. On one safety concern, hazardous materials, the consultant's report states abatement can be accomplished while maintaining the integrity of the building in the remodel scenario. For all other concerns, specific remedies were provided. When did any of you ever ask what the minimum cost would be to keep the firehouse open? Tonight I have a request for the 4 council members who participated in last year's decision. Pull the demolition contract from the consent agenda where the controversial issues hidden away. First, so that the 3 new council members who have no knowledge of this matter, who did not participate in the study session, are free to vote no. That would clearly show that council members are not afraid of dissent. Over the past year, I've identified at least 10 issues where staff should have followed up with council, providing analysis, answering questions. Little or nothing was done. Perhaps upon reflection, you now realize that actually there was lots of work for the council to do before convening a stakeholders group and before any decision was made. To the 3 new council members, you've heard my rationale for a no vote. It shows your conscientiousness in not voting for something you have limited knowledge of, that you would not knowingly vote in ignorance, that you have good judgment and are not afraid to stand up for your convictions and the convictions of your constituents, especially the kids. Why would you want your track record as a council member to be tarnished by supporting the teen center demolition? I genuinely believe the council would never have pursued this, but unfortunately in the heat of the moment with the community outcry from youth and adults, the council inadvertently was led into a misguided process and subsequent decision, simply put, a debacle. From the initial closure of the teen center, there's been conflicting information. You already heard about it. The FAQ says, it states the building is currently safe for occupancy. Hazardous materials present are safely contained and don't pose a risk. It was promised that a new teen center would be built on the same site, yet the administration has said that a feasibility study is next after demolition. Why after, when feasibility studies examine size, scope of buildings, uses, cost and funding, and other professionally recognized components are done up front to determine viability? None of this has been done. Seems to violate the council's responsibility to do due diligence first. If not found to be viable, misleading the public with promises will be tragic and a big risk to your political reputation. While there is still time, another more reasonable, responsible approach is for the item to be pulled and then postponed to a study session because 3 issues weren't being analyzed and discussed by the council. The feasibility study, how much money there is and where specifically it will come from, and historic preservation. Time out is okay. I did it.
Next is Rami Major, then Gauri Shurangar Pure, then David Morton, then Rajesh Kamath.
Hi, council members and Mayor Bernie. My name is Rachel Mazer. My handwriting could use work. I apologize. I'm here tonight to provide public comment in advance of the council study session where Columbia Pacific Advisors Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Rezone will be discussed. That's next Tuesday on the 28th. We know that you're familiar with the proposal, which is aimed at fixing a split zone condition and allowing a residential use on the property. So I'd like to emphasize just a few points in advance of your study session. First, staff has determined that the proposal satisfies the adoption criteria set forth in the code. Second, we sincerely appreciate the Planning Commission's study of the proposal. However, the recommendation written by the Planning Commission does not address which criteria have not been satisfied in their denial recommendation. Specifically, there's commentary from the chair which says, quote, most commissioners want to avoid an impression that zoning is flexible, land is already expensive enough, and we don't want to trigger future land investment for profit/turnover premised on rezoning rather than a sincere effort toward construction. We understand these concerns, but we would like to reiterate that residential uses were allowed on this parcel, and the applicant was then informed that the residential uses were being removed from that property. When they were informed of that, that's when the advocacy began to maintain the residential uses on the property. And that advocacy began when the regulations were in draft form. The applicant was then instructed to seek a comprehensive plan amendment and rezone to achieve their goals. And we just want to reiterate that the entire undertaking is rooted in a sincere effort to advance construction on the site. 2 other quick points. As you know, the City Council has the authority to accept or reject the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And our prior comment letter, which I've written several, and I'm sure you're familiar with, addresses each of those criteria in detail. And then just as a last point, just want to reiterate that if there are any questions that come up between now and the study session, we're happy to answer and meet with you and discuss it further. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Apologies, Rachel. Next is Gauri Shurangar Pure. Okay, thank you. David Morton, then Rajesh Kamath, then Emmy Fan. You are, thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm David Morton. I have 2 topics tonight. First topic, PFAS contamination in Redmond's drinking water. I've submitted written questions to city staff through Redmond's online request for service and wish to summarize them here. 1, has the city conducted a formal investigation to identify the source of PFOS and PFBS detections at wells 1 and 2? Given that Redmond's groundwater monitoring program or early warning system is committed to source identification? 2, over the years following the August 2013 all-wood recycling fire, was PFAS testing done at any Sentinel monitoring wells between the all-wood recycling site, currently DTG Recycle, and Redmond supply wells? 3, has the city obtained any PFAS soil or groundwater testing at the Evans Creek relocation project site, which is partially within the DTG site and sits up gradient of the supply wells? 4, has the city contacted the Department of Ecology, King County, or DTG Recycle to request PFAS testing of that site and adjacent soils? 5, the city's monitoring data shows a slowly rising PFOS trend at wells 1 and 2, with emerging detections at other wells. What is the operational response to a contamination problem that is worsening rather than stabilizing? 6, and what is the projected timeline for wellhead treatment design, permitting, and construction at wells 1 and 2? What interim public health protections are in place right now? These questions deserve prompt, specific answers. Second topic, Earth Month. I genuinely appreciate tonight's sustainability report. The 2025 Environmental Sustainability Action Plan's 5 big moves provide a credible roadmap toward the carbon neutrality goals established in the 2020 Climate Emergency Declaration and codified in the Redmond 2050 Climate Resilience and Sustainability Element. I'm especially glad to see tree canopy highlighted during Arbor Week. The 2019 Tree Canopy Strategic Plan documented a net loss of roughly 12 to 13 acres of canopy annually, and the 2025 ESAP shows canopy at 37.4%, which is still short of the 40% goal. Trees are not just an amenity, they are climate infrastructure, reducing urban heat, sequestering carbon, and protecting water quality. I urge the Council to ensure Big Move 5 is fully funded so that Arbor Week celebrations are backed by the sustained investment that Redmond's urban forests need. Thank you.
Next is Rajesh Kamath, and then Emmy Fan, and then we'll go online.
Yeah, I'll just make this really quick. I think a lot has been said about the Firehouse. I know we have fond memories of the Firehouse. It seems completely reasonable to say let's have a firm plan for the replacement before demolishing. I second that, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you.
Next is Emmy Fan.
Hello. Looking upon those affected by our decision to abruptly close Redmond's old Firehouse Teen Center, I only see condescension, spite, and scorn in your actions beyond the words you speak. This arrogance is not earned, and it is folly to whittle away at youth spaces that connect the youth as they grow into a world that continues becoming more chaotic and polarized as they age. It should be common knowledge that engaging in good faith is a crucial part of communication amongst healthy adults, though that has not happened between us since this treachery has transpired. If you happen to merely see the suffering of our community as an opportunity to personally gain from, I implore you to be wise rather than foolish in your greed and callousness. There are consequences to your actions that will stretch far beyond what transpires here. Just as the Firehouse touched so many in a positively impactful way, so will the actions you decide to take here affect many adversely. I will ask that you may once again reconsider this decision to demolish the Firehouse without input from the community that made it what it is, or a clear-cut plan to create something that will tangibly benefit the next generation. This will have a foundational impact on Redmond's next generation, and you are whom have the resources and power to serve the voices of the community. With power comes responsibility, and please remember that regardless of the unprecedented times we are in, government, local or federal, exists to serve the people, not the other way around. Thank you for your time.
That's all we have in person, and then we have 4 people signed up online. We will start with Seb Cho, and then Sylvan Gaskin, then Max Rollman, then El Michelle.
Hello.
Hello, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Seb Cha. I'm a Redmond born and raised architect, alumni of the old Firehouse Teen Center. Just first off, apologies to all the new city council members who have to inherit this kind of disaster. I feel for you. A lot of my work professionally is around community spaces like this. Something that's kind of similar in a project I'm working on in South Carolina is a tidal creek that was used as a landfill for decades, and the city of Charleston didn't actually do the work to maintain this landfill cap. So now it's letting out all this trash, and now they're kind of saying, oh, the creek is polluted, so we need to fill it and build buildings on top of it. I think there's a really similar kind of logic of victim blaming happening towards the Firehouse building, where all these, maintenance fees were deferred for many years, and now it's like, oh, now we need to demolish the bad building and replace it with a new shiny one. But from an architectural point of view, it's highly unusual to approve $525,000 to demolish a building when there hasn't been really a plan, timeline, or budget allocated for its reconstruction. And since City Council did vote to do that last fall, I really recommend that the engagement with the Firehouse teams actually happens now as soon as possible. I agree with everyone else that it should be explored to maintain the existing building and do a proper cost comparison between those two options, which hasn't been done. And just for the new City Council members to know that the Save OFH campaign has 4,000 signatures right now, and so many people that are invested in this, and this is really an opportunity to for you guys to have some good PR to do the right thing and stay on this council and win public goodwill. So thank you.
Next is Sylvan Gaskin, then Max Rollman, then El Michelle. Hello, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Somebody hold my beer. Angela, members of the council, I'm here tonight not to ask anything of you. I'm here to put something on the public record that will be filed formally tomorrow. You'll want your attorneys to hear this directly. I'm a forensic data analyst. 6 months ago, the city of Redmond produced 7,573 documents in response to a public records request about the old firehouse. When the file was analyzed, only 1,541 of those documents were unique. That's a 79.7% duplicate inflation rate, a known obstruction tactic, quantifiable, and every file is hashed. Within that same production, 911 emails are referenced in reply chains that have no corresponding originals. 4,109 emails had their attachments stripped before production. The message tracking IDs for all of them still exist in Microsoft Exchange. Deleting the inbox copy does not delete the server log. The council is being asked tonight to vote on the demolition of the old firehouse on the basis of a public record that has been demonstrably corrupted. Any council member who votes yes on a corrupted record is personally exposed. Tonight, you are preparing to vote to spend $400,000 of public money to demolish the old firehouse under statutory exposure from already documented public records violations. 911 withheld emails, 4,109 stripped attachments, a 79.7% duplicate inflation rate. This city faces penalty exposures up to $33 million to a single plaintiff from the same records you refuse to produce. You are about to spend $400,000 demolishing a building while sitting on 8 times that amount in liability from the obstruction tied to it. A vote to demolish tonight is a vote taken on a record the city has not produced in good faith. Every council member voting yes accepts personal exposure on that record. Tomorrow, multiple public records requests are being filed. They cover the original emails with attachments and reply chain headers. They cover the mayor's calendar and the executive scheduler's calendar. They cover city hall visitor sign-in logs and conference room booking records. Your IT department has 5 business days. Under RCW 42.56.550, attorney fees are mandatory when a requester prevails. With 911 already demonstrated withholdings, prevailing is not theoretical. The plaintiff is my sister, a licensed Washington attorney, and a parent whose daughter lost the teen center you closed. You had one opportunity to handle this transparently. You chose not to. Tonight you have another. Either you direct your staff to produce originals with attachments, with server logs, with calendars, and you postpone the demolishing, vote pending, complete production, or you pay statutory penalties on every document every day for every withholding we prove. The forensic analysis is already done. The filing's already drafted. And what is on the record tonight is not the full extent of what has been documented. Visit 0neredmond.com, 0neredmond.com for all the receipts. This meeting is being recorded. The public record persists. May you burn in hell. Your native land.
Next, we have Max Rollman and then El Michelle.
Hello?
Hello, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening. While at a conference in Portland, I spoke with a member of the Beaverton City Council who taught me a few things. One of those things is that a council member's mind is almost never swayed by public comment. This discouraged me, and I asked him, well, then what is it for? He told me it was mostly for the people who are speaking, to be able to voice their concerns and to protect the First Amendment. Separately, he also told me that things we go through in life prepare us to take on bigger things. The present is a present from the future. Effectively, we're always trained for things we don't know about yet. This was impactful for me, especially in the time we're in now, with accelerating climate change, interstate conflict at an all-time high since World War II, and AI that could feasibly wipe out or replace humanity within the next 20-ish years. He had hope, though, and I do too. While in New York, we discussed this increase in pace of change. The speaker there, Farouk Khan, compared our moment to the printing press. Gutenberg wasn't trying to break the Catholic Church. He was just focused on printing books. The biggest difference is we have a couple of printing press moments happening at the same time. All this is to say that as we move forward in these unpredictable years to come, it's vital that community spaces are not only protected, but prioritized. On the agenda tonight is the bill to approve the demolition of the old firehouse. It looks like there's yet another price increase. Who are these contractors, and why are we allowing the demolition to balloon in cost before even a word of talk on the new building? I understand that this process was followed for the senior center, but I still find it absolutely inappropriate considering the circumstances. The same thing I told the mayor and this council around this time last year remains true. The order of operations in this process is designed to sidestep honest community engagement at the cost of much of the public's trust and goodwill. In order to increase trust between this government and its youth, I would support a postponement of this agenda item to prioritize a design process that is transparent, robust, and youth-centered. I would really appreciate a clear plan. I don't know that I expect this to happen, as I'm sure you've all had meetings before this, talking extensively about how this is just how it's got to be. But if I was up there today, I would vote nay. Thanks.
And next is El Michelle.
Hello.
Hello, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, my statement is to show support for saving OFH and I guess canceling the demolition until further information can be gathered. It's also to acknowledge every person that has spent the last year trying to save this historic landmark. The work you've done has been thankless, but it matters. Thank you. The following statements are my opinion and perspective and mine alone. City Council, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Over the past year, I've watched while you stood by and allowed a corrupt mayor and her sycophant Parks Director Laureen Hamilton destroy a community gathering space that has been important in the lives of so many. You turned your back while they executed a plan that had allegedly been in the works for years before. You've let Bernie and Hamilton gut the Parks and Recreation Department, attempting to destroy the careers and livelihoods of too many employees to count. Employees who gave their careers to the community and constituents you claim to want to see prosper. Yet when you've had the opportunity to do something to force change, you didn't. You see, they don't like teens, at least the kind that need spaces like OFH, that relied on the relationships with like-minded teens and compassionate staff in order to feel safe. In some cases, the only support and kindness and oftentimes food they could count on. All you've had to do is open your eyes, talk to the employees who serve the teens. If you had, you would have known that Bernie and Hamilton had no idea who they were and what they were about. It's been easy for them to shut the doors and destroy OFH because it never mattered. OFH didn't promote the image of Redmond they are desperate to portray. Their lives aren't the kind of pretty they like. Yet, as is often true with pretty faces, the underlying disease is there, and you are all infected. Shame on you for letting the teens think they mattered, that you would somehow be different than the other adults in their world that let them down simply because they colored outside the lines. You've created a core memory for them, and not in a good way. You are so quick to congratulate yourselves every single time you show up for something. It's gross, and I have no doubt you will continue to do so. I have no reason to believe you aren't exactly like Bernie and Hamilton, driven only by your status and ego. Nevertheless, I challenge you to prove me wrong. In conclusion, Mayor Bernie, you disgust me. You've allegedly allowed that completely unqualified monster to destroy the Parks and Recreation Department. Allegedly, your registrations and revenues are down. Your capable staff are miserable and fear for their jobs. Did you know that you are marketing a men's soccer league using a picture of a cricket team? That's bad. If you were capable of shame, I'd admonish you for fostering the kind of toxic environment in which staff are overworked, live in constant fear of retaliation, and ultimately make those kinds of mistakes. The city of Redmond used to be the gold standard, and now it's, well, not that, and it's your fault. I still believe there is a heart for service in some of you council members, so do something.
And in conclusion?
Speak out for the teens.
And
Speak out for the
your
teens you
time is
don't
up.
deserve to have around.
Items from the audience is now closed. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any items to be pulled? Councilmember Parsi.
I request that we pull item number 5.
Thank you. Are there any other items to be pulled? Any other items to be pulled? Seeing none, this we'll have to do a roll call vote. We have a council member online, and this is a roll call vote for the remaining consent items, starting with Council President Stewart.
Aye.
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 And that passes 7-0. Item number 5, is there a motion to move item number 5?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any comment on the item, Councilmember Parsi?
I am new to the council, and I was not part of the previous conversations. And I understand that while once the building is gone, it's gone. So I wanted to take a moment to make sure that we have a conversation transparently and make sure that we address some of the comments from the public that we heard. Also, there is an item that I reached out to the staff with a question this week, and we just heard back. So I just wanted to make sure that the council also had a chance to consider that as we make a decision tonight. The item that I reached out to staff with a question about was the 2 trees right next to the building. There's a Douglas fir and a western red cedar. Because of the shallow root system, I believe, for the 2 trees and the close proximity to the building, those 2 trees that are quite large will likely have to be, will be gone as a part of the demolition. So I wanted to also raise this to the council and make sure that there's awareness about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this item? Council Vice President Nueva Camino.
Thank you, Mayor. While I do support moving forward with the demolition of the old Firehouse Teen Center as we had already planned, I recognize that the building's failing roof and overall condition may continued use no longer viable, but I also want to ensure that we're honoring the commitment we made to our teens and our community, that replacement planning would meaningfully center teen voices and youth needs as we move forward. The Firehouse has long been more than a structure. As testimony over a year has proved, it has represented belonging, creativity, connection, and a place where young people knew that you mattered. Now, at the same time, we know that a building alone does not define a community. I said at early stages that a building does not define a community, and I still stand by that, even though that may be unpopular by some in the room. Communities endure through relationships, shared purpose, and even people who carry their spirit forward, even when physical spaces change or are lost. And our responsibility now is to make sure that that spirit is not only preserved, but strengthened in what comes next. Because of that history and that responsibility, I believe it's important that we publicly, as a council, reaffirm the path forward tonight, what engagement has occurred and what comes next, and how teens will remain at the center of the rebuild process. Now, supporting demolition where necessary and supporting accountability are not mutually exclusive, and I have faith that we can do both. Thank you.
Any other council members comment on this item? Councilmember Prakria.
I am an alumnus of the Teen Center, and when council voted last November, before I was on council, 6-0 to rebuild the Teen Center, there were a few fundamental tenets of that decision. Number one is the fact that the rebuild would have to take place in the same location. Number two, the rebuild would have to be expedient. Number three, would have to center teen voices. And most importantly, would have to include the same or better facilities and amenities that the old building had. Music performance spaces, recording studios like the recording studios that I used to use. And while I am in favor of the rebuild, I want to state my absolute commitment to making sure that these same facilities or better facilities are included in the rebuild, and I'm committed to seeing this through.
Any other comment on this item? Councilmember Soni?
So before I joined, the decision to demolish the old firehouse was taken, and it has been a tough decision. But sitting and listening to the previous meetings and all the details, did some research, and I've gone through all the documentations. For me, the answer for OFS's honor does not lie in loss. It lies in the continuity. We are not choosing between past and future. We are choosing how to carry the past forward into a stronger, safer future. So we must ensure whatever replaces the current structure retains the soul of Old Firehouse, which we have heard from every single teenagers and every single person who has talked about. A dedicated teen-only space where youth will feel ownership and belonging, a creative and cultural hub, especially for music and arts, a centrally located, accessible space that remains part of our downtown life, and most importantly, a place that is designed with teens and not just the teens. So this is where our trust matters. The community has spoken very clearly. It is not just about the building, but about what it represents. And it is now our responsibility as a council to ensure that this representation is not diluted in the process of change. So definitely, we want to retain the legacy of Old Firehouse and should not erase it, but rebuild it with the right intentions so that every teenager feels that their home is back again. Thank you.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry that I can't be there in person with you all. I want to thank my colleagues for really thoughtful comments and would agree with many of them. I will just note that I've given deep thought to this, have spent deep time engaging with our community on this over the past year, and have been listening and reflecting on how powerful and important the Old Firehouse Teen Center has been for our community and is for our community, and that I want to make sure it will be for our community. As my colleagues highlighted, one of the things that we committed to when we made our decision in the fall was to doing this as expediently as possible, because what we've heard from teens is that they need this space. They need their own space. And this space in particular, this special place to be able to make music and be able to have a place to feel safe and to go to. And I'm committed to making sure that we rebuild this on the site with music space and with all of the things that can honor the legacy of this building, and be able to build it in a way that will make sure it can last for generations, so that we don't have to revisit this conversation for decades and decades and decades. So the goal is to be able to make sure that this building will be standing for a long time, it will be safe, and that we do it as quickly as possible. My understanding is that in order for us to be able to move forward on rebuilding that building as soon as possible, we do need to take this vote tonight. And that is why I'm voting now to do this instead of delaying. But I also want to let those know who did testify tonight and who may be listening that I am deeply committed to pushing to make sure that we center our teen voices, we center our community, and we make this a collaborative process to build the center that truly embodies what is so special and what is so needed in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Council President?
Thank you so much for the thoughtful comments by my colleagues, and to Councilmember Parsi. Yes, I received the email regarding the trees and the tree replacement as per our current code. And of course, tree code is coming up later this year, so we'll be looking forward to that conversation. As has been said by my colleagues, this decision tonight needs to take place because it's actually part and parcel of the prior decision. All of these decisions were linked, and this is the next step toward the replacement. I'm gonna take a risk and say a little something different tonight, which is in response particularly to Max Rollman's comments tonight. I want to urge future leaders, civic leaders like Max, to not take the advice of the colleague, the council member from Beaverton. I actually think that the community deserves a ton of credit, and we haven't discussed that as much. The reason public comment matters is demonstrated by the fact that the OFH Teen Center stayed on the agenda for a year, that we got to an outcome, even though it's not an outcome that we all wanted or are excited about. But we did get to an outcome because community advocates kept it on the agenda and raised the temperature. This project is being prioritized, and unfortunately the vote tonight is a piece of that. But ultimately, this project has now skipped the line ahead of other projects that have been waiting in line for other important city priorities because of the impact of public comment, because of the impact of engagement. So stay optimistic, Max, and I look forward to thank you. We have a little bit of feedback in the audience, so I'll go ahead and conclude my comments.
I need you to refrain from speaking in the audience, or we'll have to have you removed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do know that my comments tonight are a bit of a risk and they're a little bit different. I wanted to add these comments in addition to the comments that were so thoughtfully offered by my colleagues tonight. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Councilmember Forsyth.
Thank you. I really, truly appreciate the comments from my colleagues. I think you all covered it very beautifully. I'm just reflecting on this process as someone who was on the council when we were faced with very similar conversations around the Redmond Senior and Community Center. This is a very similar situation we find ourselves in however many years later. And while it is not comfortable and it is not fun, it is absolutely a shame that we are in a position like this again. And learning from that process, I know that this is going to be challenging. I know that there are voices that are not going to feel heard, but I am hopeful, as I have seen through the Redmond Senior and Community Center, that once we get to the other side of all of this, we will have proven to you that we do hear you, that your voice does matter, and that we do have your best interest at heart in ensuring, as we laid out, the rebuild of the teen center in the exact same location, prioritizing expedience, centering teen voices, and including that music performance space and dedicated recording studio. I was very, very proud to include the dedicated recording studio space.
I need you to be quiet or we'll have to clear the chambers. Thank you.
I was very proud to make the amendment to make sure that the music space and the dedicated recording studio stayed there because I know that is the magic of what the legacy of the Teen Center is. And I'm excited to see that new space developed. I know this is going to be a challenging stretch of time, but I do support us continuing forward with this process.
Councilmember Parsi?
I understand the decision upon us today is to approve the contract for the demolition and not this is not the decision to demolish or not. That decision has been made by the council before. But I do want to make sure that I understand what would be the downside of waiting for a plan to rebuild before we demolish. It seems like that's a question that folks are asking, and I think that would help me make a better decision tonight to have an answer to that. So if you could speak to that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
I'll ask Director Burt to come on up to the microphone. Thank you.
Good evening, Aaron Burt, Public Works Director. So the next step in this process, actually, we've determined that for the teen center rebuild, we're going to use progressive design build, much like we're using on the maintenance and operations center. What this is going to allow us to do is go through a process of validation, much like we are on the MOC. So that brings in all the various stakeholders, looks at the programming component, looks at the cost assumptions for the rebuild site, and then we bring it back to council with the plan to drive it forward. With progressive design build, it also allows us to be the most expedient in terms of proposing a rebuild process and gives us that flexibility from the beginning to work with our design and construction partners rather than the traditional design bid build process. So we're actually, how fortuitous, we are working on a memo to bring to council to explain this change of approach. We will be able to provide that later this week, but that's going to be our way forward on this project.
Councilmember Parsi?
So if I understand correctly, the reason for demolish first and then build is because we want to be expedient, and the downside of waiting for a design would be that we would have to delay the process.
I'm sorry, Councilmember, I missed the first part of your question.
So I think the question I asked kind of before was, what would be the downside of waiting for a plan before we demolish? What would be the downside of waiting to have a plan for rebuild before we demolish? So from what I heard so far, the downside would be that there would be a delay. If you could quantify that, or if you could add on to any other reasons for demolish first. I understand the process for progressive design build, but I just wanted to understand more about the downsides.
So that's more of a policy decision and a direction from the council, making that determination on executing this contract. Whether or not it gets demolished tomorrow or in a month, that is not really directly tied to the progressive design build process, but removal of the building as per the council direction, or if you take this direction, is part of that overall process to execute the rebuild of the site as per the direction that the council has voted on previously, that the intent is to build a new teen center.
Any other questions from council? Councilmember Prakria?
So just to reiterate my colleague's question, will there, in your estimation, be let's say we move this to the next business meeting, would there be a delay in the construction, the rebuild of the teen center?
If you delay it 2 weeks, that is not an overall issue about the rebuild timeline.
Oh, Councilmember Kritzer.
Yeah, thank you. I had asked a question about this to staff in response to some questions we got via email. And one of the answers that I had just gotten back within the last day was that the demolition of the current facility would allow all site conditions to be known prior to and during design, which would save time and allow for proper planning. Is that correct, Director Burt? I think that was on a chain with you. And I didn't hear you mention that in talking about this. My understanding would be that we do need to know some things about the site that we may not know until the building is actually demolished. Is that true or not true?
That is true, and my response on whether it's a 2-week delay, eventually we have to get to that point to understand the underlying site conditions to better inform the rebuild design proposal. So, but in response to the council member's statement, is it a 2-week delay for further discussion? I mean, that's okay, but we eventually have to get to this point where to advance the project, the building will need to come down.
But and in terms of why we might demolish first, then begin design, my understanding was for this reason, not necessarily whether we could wait 2 weeks, because we could always wait 2 weeks, but then it's waiting 2 weeks to get started on something that we think should go in that order of operations. So can you just clarify that? Because I think that's in my opinion, kind of the underlying question here of whether we make this decision in general at this point or whether we start designing before we've done the demolishing.
Yeah, the more information that you have going into a project of this magnitude in the downtown core with the conditions that are there or that have been there because of the historical use of the building, that more of that information we can get up front, the better it is to inform the redesign and the process moving forward. So I would say that it is a benefit the sooner that the building can come down, but in this situation, a 2-week delay is not going to impact that in the longer term.
Councilmember Forsyth, thank you.
Thank you. I know during this process, we've talked a lot about construction windows and the timelines for that. I know when we looked at the Redmond Senior Community Center, we came up against weather and construction windows. Can you talk us through a little bit of that, what that timeline would look like on this project if we kick this decision down the road a month, 2 months, what the impact might be?
Market conditions change, but it all depends on the design process. So a building of this scale and scope, ideally if we began the progressive design build process, what we could be able to do is probably over a 4 to 5 month period, go through that validation, come back to the council with the pathway forward with appropriate council input and engagement in terms of program support, and then what this building could potentially look like. And then at that point, we move into a permitting and full design process. Something like this would probably take about a year. So all told, in an ideal condition, moving at this pace that we're at right now, we could conceivably start construction within about an 18-month period.
Council, I've got a few more. Council Member Parker, then Council President Stewart.
So the way I'm looking at this is kind of through a first principles approach. The most important tenet for me is getting the new building as soon as possible. And then the second most important tenet would be, demolish as late as possible so that by chance maybe we could get some preliminary designs to share with the community before the building is gone. So what would be the latest time in which we could demolish that would not push the construction, the finishing, the new building, the new building's construction date forward? Because that to me is most important. That is my first principle, and then secondarily is this.
Councilmember, I can't speculate on that at this time in terms of what the latest timeline would be to bring down the building yet, until we are able to bring on board the design build team to begin that process of validation and move that forward.
And I can actually add, it's not just the demolition of the building because of the design process, but that does need to move forward so we know the site conditions. But we also have staff that make sure buildings are safe, even though no one's going in the building. And the longer that building stands, the more concern there is for staff having to do maintenance on that building to keep it in enough condition that it doesn't come down on its own. And that was one of the concerns that was brought up last year when we were talking about this process. Council President.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the conversation, and much of this was also discussed in committee meeting most recently. And what I've learned on this body and at this dais is that we have to be decisive sometimes, and in this case, we have made this decision. So I'm prepared to move forward today with the bid that we have. A delay would also put at risk that bid and that work that was already taken to secure those bids and all of that. Though that effort was taken on due to council direction. And so I will be voting to proceed today as planned in accordance with the prior direction. I think it's really important to continue to complete this decision and be able to move on to the work. We're hearing a little bit of a preview. I'm just going to call that a preview tonight because we have lots of questions and are eager to hear more about the process and need to design a robust and, as we have discussed, youth-led community deliberation process. And much of that work we are not prepared to do here today, but this is a decision we have already made. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Stewart.
Aye.
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 And I,
Council Members Parsi, we're voting right now. So was your vote nay or aye?
no.
No. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kritzer?
Aye.
And that passes 6-1. Thank you so much for that discussion. With the passing of the consent agenda, we also passed ordinance number 3252, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending ordinance number 3196, 3215, 3224, 3229, 3236, and 3250 by making adjustments to the city's 2025 through 2026 biennial budget and Exhibit 1. And with the passage of the consent agenda, we also have appointed new Arts and Culture and Human Services Commission members. Thank you. Those in attendance, please come up to the podium to be sworn in. And if you have family members who want to take pictures, please come on up to the front as well.
Right over there, guys.
Yeah, right over there. Cheryl's got you.
Please come and stand over here. Yes, facing me. So I am the city clerk, and I will be swearing you in tonight. I'll be swearing you in all at once. And if you agree, then when I'm done, you reading the oath, you say I do or I will. And then we'll sign your oaths here, and then go shake hands with the mayor and council. All right, everybody ready? Raise your right hand. Do you, Joyce Paul and Rick Deskin, having been duly appointed to the Redmond Arts and Culture Commission, and Sabrina Sevilla and Sonia Lawson Samalsi, having been duly appointed to the Human Services Commission of the City of Redmond, Washington, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of your office as prescribed by law and to the best of your ability, and that you will support and maintain the ordinances of the City of Redmond, the laws and the Constitution of the State of Washington and the United States of America.
I do.
Congratulations. And sign. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and sign whichever oath is yours, and then you guys can do photos and shake hands.
Congratulations to you all. Really excited to have you on board. Our next item of business is a staff report on Earth Month and Arbor Day activities. Jenny Liebeck, Sustainability Program Manager, will introduce this item.
Good evening, Council. Just give me 1 second while I pull up these slides. Not those slides, apologies. So again, good evening, Council. I'm Jenny Liebeck, Sustainability Manager. So throughout the month of April, we join communities across the country in celebrating Earth Month and Arbor Day. This is an annual reminder of the progress we're making and the important role that each of us plays in protecting our environment. So tonight, I'm here to briefly reflect on that progress and share several opportunities for our community to celebrate Redmond's trees, support sustainability, and take meaningful action together. And just to ground us, last year, Council adopted the refreshed Environmental Sustainability Action Plan, which prioritizes the 5 big moves that you see here. And these big moves are guiding our work over the next 5 years towards a thriving community and environment. And so this Earth Month, we're first celebrating action. So over the past 4 months, we've seen some major wins at the city. We've been able to bring Climate Commitment Act dollars to Redmond residents through Energy Smart East Side, and this is making homes in Redmond more efficient with heat pumps and more resilient to our hotter and smokier summers. We saw a record 44 new forest stewards complete their training in February, and they're already caring for parks and young plantings across Redmond. And finally, with RedLink, we're helping residents connect more easily to light rail and choose more sustainable ways to visit Redmond's parks and businesses. And this is real progress, and it shows a community that is stepping up together to realize our vision of a thriving community and environment. And so with that, we are inviting the community to get involved and celebrate Earth Month and Arbor Day with us. We have events every night this week, from an Arbor Day celebration at Idlewood Park and a family movie night, to a chance to get your questions answered with the sustainability team. And you can also join the city's Nature Challenge kickoff at Farrell McWhirter later this week. Again, there is no shortage of ways to celebrate, and community members can find out more opportunities on our website, which is listed here, at redmond.gov/earthmonth. And again, a reminder that April isn't the only time to get involved. From our monthly sustainability office hours to Green Redmond events, again, there are always opportunities to stay connected and give back to our community and the environment. So again, we have a full calendar of events, including several hosted by our new forest stewards, and you can find all of those on our website, which is listed here. So thank you again for your time, and happy Earth Day and happy Arbor Day.
Thank you so much, Ms. Liebeck. And I do, before I ask council if they have any questions, my question is, what is the movie for Earth Month?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Do we have anyone from Parks here? We don't know.
Was that your question, too?
It was the Lorax last year.
Oh, well, we'll have to let people
I'll look
know.
and I'll put it in the chat.
They'll have to go online and find out. There you go. Sorry to put you on the spot. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Liebeck this evening? Well, thank you all. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this month. All right. Our next item of business is a staff report on the Capital Investment Program, or CIP, project updates for Q1 2026. Aaron Burt, Public Works Director, will introduce this item, and I see he's bringing up his team.
Good evening, Council. Aaron Burt, Public Works Director. Yes, this is our Q1 CIP update. Joining me tonight is Tess Wilkinson, who's our CIP planner, and Mr. Steve Gibbs, Mr. CIP for Redmond Public Works, as the division manager. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Hi, good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. I am Tess Wilkinson with Public Works. I am the Principal Planner for the Capital Investment Program. And tonight I'm very excited to be bringing you the Q1 updates for our 2026 CIP. I forgot to bring a mouse, so bear with me while I'm a little slow using the laptop. This slide shows all of our completed and targeted to be completed projects this year. We are on track to complete 14 projects. So far, 2 of them have been completed in Q1, giving us a 14% completion rate with 33 active projects so far this quarter. A mouse. Here are pictures of our completed projects so far in Q1. These were all completed in February. There are some punch list items still underway at Fire Station 17, and I believe they have wrapped up the punch list on Avondale Way with the installation of the railing system that you see there. Moving on to our projects and program reporting, the meat of our topic tonight. Our first program report is on the general government CIP. This project, as I stated before, we've completed the first item there. An early little look into next quarter. We did complete the ADA facilities projects this month. A little late for me to get it marked as complete on this report. With your vote tonight, abatement work will begin at the old Firehouse Teen Center in May. Should take approximately about 3 weeks, and then the demolition activities will go underway. Construction will start on the second phase of the EV charging stations. City staff who use the municipal parking garage, they will see some parking spaces blocked off for construction. Visitor parking will not be impacted by this project. Our featured project within this portfolio tonight is the MOC, and Steve here is going to share with us some updates on that project.
Good evening again, Council. Steve Gibbs, Capital Division. Just first, I want to recognize Tess's. This is all Tess's work. She does a great job organizing all these projects and bringing this information to you. I'm just here to add some color to the specific items on the projects. So on the MOC, by far our biggest project, the design team is continuing to work through the validation phase. We're starting to look at the next phase, which is design and pre-construction. And the team is planning to bring the project before you, the May 26th Committee of the Whole, and then the June 2nd business meeting. So you'll be hearing from us soon on that one.
All right, moving on to our parks portfolio. All of the projects on this list here are overseen by the Capital Division and are underway. Construction at the Reservoir Park will resume in June, and it is targeted for a July project completion. Community engagement for our newest project, the Hartman Park Playground replacement, will begin a little later this spring and into the summer. And I'm going to turn this over once again to Steve, who's going to give us a little bit more information on our featured project tonight, which is the Idlewood Park parking lot expansion and frontage improvements.
So on this one, the design team has solidified the new parking lot layout. They took some great lengths to minimize impacts to the existing trees. We've also got a layout on the shared use path adjacent to the parking lot. We'll have a protected bike lane and a separated pedestrian walkway. We're currently looking at stormwater options for the project, and construction will get scheduled probably after summer when peak use of the park is completed, and then that'll continue into next year.
So Traffic Operations owns the first half of our overall transportation portfolio. Within this portfolio, the 154th paving project was advertised for bids last week, and paving will take place this summer. The pedestrian bicycle safety project, as well as Avondale paving and the ADA curb ramps projects, will go out for bids in the next few weeks. So our featured project is the Northeast 24th Street paving and utilities, and I'm going to turn it over to Steve again.
So this one should really be called the 24th Utilities and Paving Project because the majority of the work is utilities. Currently, right now, we've got about 3,000 feet of new water main in, and we've got another 3,000 feet to go. At this point, the crews are going to fall back and start doing the laterals to cul-de-sacs and side streets, and then start with connecting services. And then they'll move on to 2,000 feet of wastewater pipe replacement and another 600 feet of mainly storm crossings in that section. The section is between Westlake and about 172nd, the Bellevue-Redmond line on 24th. This construction is very challenging with all the existing underground utilities. We're kind of weaving over and under existing lines. The AC line is very fragile, and we've already had one break that we had to have our crews respond to and repair, clean up. And so we're increasing our oversight with the contractor, meeting daily and with a plan, and identifying all the cables, water lines, and other sewer crossings that are in the street. So work is progressing, and this will go on into next year before we pave.
Underground work is always very exciting. So the second half of our overall transportation portfolio is owned by Transportation Planning. After their winter shutdown, construction on the Bell Red Road buffered bike lanes has started up again this month. And we are still waiting on WashDOT plan approval to advertise the Northeast 70th Street shared use path and crosswalk project. The crosswalk is the final piece needed to complete this project. Our featured project tonight from this section of the portfolio is the 156th Avenue shared use path.
I think a couple of council members went out and inspected this site when we were just starting the design to see all the trees that are kind of in the way of the path. We are approaching 60% design, and we owe you a check-in. We're planning to come before you in June, or actually design will be, or 60% will be achieved in June, and then we're planning on the July 14th study session to bring that before you. I've sat in a couple tree meetings. The team's working really hard to preserve the existing trees where we can, going as far as building little retaining walls at the edge of the roots to keep the fill off the roots and make sure that those existing trees will survive. And we look forward to bringing this to you on the 14th of July.
All right, our utilities program is the last program that we'll be reporting on tonight. As I noted earlier, work will begin at Reservoir Park again in June. However, construction on the water tank at that park is complete at this time. Construction on phase 2 of the lift station equipment upgrades will also be underway this summer. On the Willows Road water main, you'll see a yellow indicator on that. That is due to cost estimates that we've been receiving lately. They're higher than expected. However, we are within the budget, including the contingency on there. We are keeping our eyes on that. This project will go out to bid next month, and we'll have a better idea of the overall cost for that. I'm going to turn the rest of this report over to Steve, who's going to give you an update on the wastewater CIPP project. And because you've all been listening so nicely, he'll even let you know what CIPP means.
Okay, well, so this project's been around for a while. We're going to come back in July and request a scope change and a budget change on this. The original concept that was conceived several years ago had several small sections of pipe, and what we're hearing from the construction teams is that we need to have a bigger, more contiguous section of pipe to repair to get bidders interested in bidding this work. So we're going to come back. It's going to be about 70. Original scope was about 1,100 feet. This is going to be about 7,600 feet, concentrating on Avondale Way and Redwood Road. And we will be coming in July with a consultant agreement to get that project started, and then also a kind of give you a little more specifics on the scope change and the budget ask for that. This work is we don't dig up the road, so it's less impactful to adjacent properties, and it also these sections of pipe that we're targeting to fix. We've done video inspections. They have really poor condition, and there's a lot of I&I. I&I is inflow and infiltration, and so it's storm downspout hookups, lids that aren't sealed, cracks in the pipe, holes in the pipe, that kind of thing. And so this CIPP, I promised I'd tell you what that is. It's cured in place pipe, and very effective method using robotics and less digging, less impacts to the adjacent properties, and gives us a good solution. So we'll be coming in July on that one.
All right, thank you all. That does conclude our report. We will be back in July for the Q2 report. If anybody has any questions or wants more information on any of the projects that we presented tonight or any other projects within our CIP, please feel free to email Aaron Burt, and he will get the questions to us, and we'll get answers to you just as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you all so much. Are there any questions? Council President.
Thank you so much. I want to just once again thank you all for coming back with these quarterly reports. It's super helpful to track progress and also to get a little preview and hear, you know, some of the issues that we're going to hear about, it sounds like, in July on a couple of these projects. Thank you so much. On the 156th shared use path and that extension to 51st Street, glad to see that we are approaching 60% design on that. Councilmember Parsi and I actually walked that section of road last night. And one of the things I observed is that now the public noticing has gone up about the redevelopment alongside that same stretch. So my question is about our shared use path, which we have this grant to complete, and hopefully we'll get that underway. Is there risk that that path will be disturbed by redevelopment? Might we end up in a situation, or how are we avoiding a situation in which we lay in infrastructure, it gets torn up by development, and then we have to come back and do it again, or have them come back and do it again?
Yeah, great question. So we're very aware of the development. We can definitely stop within the limits of where the development is going to start and have a transition section to meet in with the existing infrastructure until they do their work. That's kind of our current plan. Director, you want to add anything to that?
No, we've had extensive discussions about this component.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And maybe when we come back in July, I'd love to just hear how that's going. But thank you so much for this update.
Any other questions? And thank you, Council President, for bringing that up. I think that's one of the more frustrating things that our community sees is when we finish this beautiful stretch of bike lane and then it gets torn up again. We ideally don't like to do that.
Can I add
absolutely.
one final point?
Dr. Burt.
With the CIPP project, actually, it's a great way to approach fixing these kind of issues. But one thing that's interesting is with the I&I, the infiltration, that is stormwater that we are not capturing within the system as a whole. So essentially, as it infiltrates, no one's paying for that. In the end. So ensuring that we have pipes that are accountable and not accounting for this infill or infiltration is actually a good thing for our system as well. So just an interesting tidbit there on those nuances of wastewater. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Thank you all very much. It's really great to get the update. Thank you. Right, our next item is Ombuds report. Council President Stewart, do you want to finish up March?
I have no items from March. I'm happy to come back around.
Great, thank you. And Councilmember Kritzer, is she still on for the month of April? There she is. Thank you.
I am on. Yeah, we have been receiving a lot of messages through Ombuds this month. We received several messages about renter protections, and the subcommittee is continuing to work on that. Residents received feedback from the mayor's office about that, and I'll also be following up with all of them just to give some updates on the subcommittee's work as well. We also received a message from a resident who had concerns about statewide drought declarations and what we're doing to protect our water supply and waterways here in Redmond. So followed up there as well. Also followed up with residents who we received many messages from residents in the Marymore neighborhood who had concerns about parking, very similar to the testimony that we heard during public comment tonight. And I followed up with every resident that wrote to us to be able to let them know that our staff will be following up. I believe they're going to be engaging with community members to understand more of the challenges and to be able to come to a solution. So thank you in advance to our staff for engaging with our community on that, and we'll continue to track that. We also received information from a change.org petition, and I have not yet written back to the person who's kind of the point of contact for that petition from change.org, but I'll also reply there just to make sure that we fully close the loop on that as well. We also received a couple messages about some technical issues with some of the recordings of our meetings and some of the audio in our meetings as well. And so I forwarded that on to our technical staff. I'll just note, one resident noted that it was challenging virtually to be able to watch a few of our recent meetings, and I think there was a technical error. I know we do try to be as transparent and make sure that we have those online recordings as easily accessible as possible so that everyone can watch what we're doing and be able to follow up if you'd missed it, to be able to watch the recording as well. I want to thank our staff for following up on that as well. And I'll also note that we also received a message from a resident who was concerned about loss of healthcare access for immigrants in other states. Followed up with that resident as well. And then we also received some invitations for the council to be able to join some community events, and I was able to follow up with those invitations and to let them know that individual council members would follow up there as well. So I might be missing a few things, but I think those are for now, and then I will report more in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Any other ombuds items for tonight? Councilmember Forsythe.
Thank you. I had some conversations around possible tenant protections, trails and wayfinding, housing and middle housing future needs, bike lanes and safety, parking issues, and a crosswalk at Old Redmond and the ADA detectable warning surfaces that are peeling by a bus stop. I will email a picture that I went out and took and exact location to our Public Works team.
Thank you. Any other ombuds items for tonight? Council Vice President Nueva Camino.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of what my colleagues are also having conversations about as living downtown and being a renter myself, several conversations last couple of weeks on the renters' protections and, of course, the 2-hour parking. We had that change initially in the downtown corridor. Now we're seeing it there in Marymore, so plenty of conversations there. And then also I had a couple of people reach out, also concerned about the state drought that was declared. However, that does omit Everett, Tacoma, and the Seattle area, and those that get their water from those utilities. That's the end of my report.
Thank you so much. And we get notification through Cascade Water Alliance because some of their water does come from Seattle. So if there will be impacts to community members, we'll make sure that we get that out. But I think as most community members know, it was a pretty dry winter and not a lot of snowpack. So more to come on that. But thank you. Council President.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. A wide variety of issues at my office hours. Was able to refer folks to a few resources. and heard some feedback on community outreach and the city's work on respect, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I spoke with a couple of groups that are considering applying for Derby Days booths, so just wanted to let the council know that those applications are actually live right now on the city's website, and applications for booths are due in about a month. So if there's anyone you know or a business that might be interested in hosting a booth, that's all available right now on the city's website. The biggest ombuds issue that I have been spending time on over the last couple of weeks is regarding a septic to sewer conversion in a neighborhood that's really, really tough. And I want to appreciate Director Burt and his team and Director Helen and her team and the various entities that have been involved. I will say it's really tough to not be able to solve a resident's problem when a solution is needed. And that's where ultimately this case ended. But just to kind of foreshadow for my colleagues, spending time with this resident and in this neighborhood is really informing how I will be looking forward to reading our septic to sewer to conversion report later this year, and looking forward to digging into some of the big policy questions that lie ahead of us. They are going to be tough. So I'm eager to get to work on that. Also, council leadership had an announcement we just wanted to share, and I will follow up in email so you kind of have that in your virtual to-do list, if you will. We met today and reviewed the council's matrix from the retreat. We now have those staff responses. You all received that, just like we did last week. Council leadership, what we're proposing is that all council members come to council talk time next week, prepared to discuss the items that are identified as tier 1. So those ones on the budget and the policy tabs. Bring your questions, let us, bring your feedback on, did any idea get lost in translation, what questions, feedback you have. So I will send an email reminder, but please come prepared for that next week at council talk time. Thank you.
Thank you. Other ombuds items? Councilmember Soni?
So I attended Eastside Transportation Partnership meeting along with our council member Kritzer and Parsi. So basically, a couple of updates from there. We had that, the agency has launched their spring service change, metro agency basically, on March 28th with 50,000 more service hours. Savannah Steele from Sound Transit recapped the Cross Lake Connection opening day with all the celebrations that has happened. From PSRC Regional Transportation Board, they voted to move forward the regional transportation plan, and it will now go to PSRC Executive Board and then to full PSRC membership. Then Amber Stanley from WS Dot provided a Revive I-5 update with a lot of details there. And basically, there is an ETP subcommittee that they are putting up a letter of support for Line 4. And, there is a draft that has been made and then will be forwarded. Apart from this, I did attend the annual investment celebration along with our Mayor Bernie, Council President Stewart, and Council members Forsyth and Procaria. I also met as an introduction meeting with Eastside for All, and had an opportunity to meet all the organizations involved there at the constituency level, helping some small businesses, those who are dealing with some of the permits issue, as well as the new ones who are ready to open their doors in Redmond, trying to help them, with their initial setup and everything. Helping a domestic violence victim and collecting with the resources. I definitely want to also acknowledge Chief Shepherd and his team for helping one of the business in the permitting process. Thank you so much for that. And had few discussions regarding the OFH and the affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ombuds items for tonight? Councilmember Parsi?
I had a number of conversations about safety on the sidewalks with constituents, and including members who had disability, who had some concerns with safety on the sidewalks.
Thank you. Councilmember Precria?
I had a number of conversations. The main one centered around, the noise ordinance, as well as Redmond's Renters' Bill of Rights. And I will also want to say for the listening public, this is something I realized earlier, but to branch off of what my colleague, Councilmember Kritzer, said, sometimes you can go to YouTube to watch the meetings rather than Facebook if Facebook is not working. I've found that the YouTube sound is more reliable, although I realize this is kind of a catch-22 because This is trying to help folks who can't hear audio, and this is through audio. But hopefully, if you see this in the captions, if there's no audio on your Facebook or on your Redmond Municipal TV, try YouTube.
Thank you. And we also have it on our website, the links to the video as well, that you can do closed captioning as well. Let's move on to committee reports. Are there any committee reports this evening? Council President.
Thank you. Long night, so I'll just stick to one. Councilmember Procri and I attended the Public Issues Committee of the Sound Cities Association. 2 initiatives to update you on. First, you may remember that we, as members of the Sound Cities Association, took an emergency action to send a letter to King County Transportation District that if they were to adopt a new sales tax to support roads, our request was to do revenue sharing with the cities, and the request was for up to 25%. So those negotiations are ongoing. At the time of the Public Issues Committee, the reports from staff who are leading engagement on that is that it is pretty likely that this sales tax will be adopted, and that the majority of the King County Council, at least at that time, had been moved and swayed toward some amount of revenue sharing. So that is an issue that continues to make its way forward. Additionally, at our meeting, we reviewed the proposed sewer rate letter. I shared that with the draft with you ahead of last month's meeting. We will be reviewing amendments and hopefully adopting a letter to be distributed. So when I have the next PIC packet, I will share that with you all. I think 2026 is the year of talking about sewers and stormwater, I&I. This is not, these are all related issues. So I will pass that along, whether it's an additional resource for you or for your feedback as a PIC continues. We also had a panel discussion featuring city staff from around the county regarding the impacts of the state legislature on our local cities. And I'm flagging this because I want to also remind the council that this year I'll be serving on the AWC Ledge Priorities Committee again. We kick off our work on May 1st, and I am meeting with staff and our lobbyist later this week to just kind of orient around a couple of ideas that Redmond might want to bring to the table on that work. So thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, the Sound Cities Board also took a look at that letter and asked if there's any edits as well, but it sounds like you'll be seeing it back at PIC. I don't know if anyone added anything to it. All right. Any other committee reports? Vanessa Kritzer, Councilmember Kritzer. Sorry. It is getting late.
That's all right. I was just going to add on to Councilmember Stoney's comment about the Eastside Transportation Partnership to flag for the council, which I believe we might have briefly mentioned, is that at the last ETP meeting, we did review a proposed letter that was drafted by council members from Issaquah asking all of ETP to sign on to a letter to the Sound Transit Board around funding and including sound transit planning to go to Issaquah for the Kirkland Issaquah line. So so we'll be forwarding the draft letter. There were going to be some updates to that letter just to the council, and happy to discuss it at council talk time next week. I did note when we were in the meeting that our mayor is on the Sound Transit Board. So we would need to have some discussions amongst the city of how our city shows up there. But I did want to make sure that we do bring it to the city council for everyone to be aware of the request from City of Issaquah to fellow East Side jurisdictions on this transportation priority. So I'll be sending that in advance, and hopefully we can discuss at council talk time next week.
Great, thank you. And I was forwarded that letter, so we'll take a look at it. And if there are anything concerning on it, I'll let you know. But I don't know if this. I'm the one on the. I'm the person on the board. I don't know where the council wants to, whether they want to sign on or not. But I suspect that the letter is coordinated with what I've been advocating for anyway. So it should be not a conflict. But I will make sure that we are clear on that.
Great.
Council President.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Council President.
Thank you, and that's a really clear, a really helpful reminder. I should say, Mayor Bernie, if you have any documentation about some of the things that you are working on in that space that could help the council understand where the city is represented in that, it would be helpful for us to be caught up on that.
Thank you. Yes, I can share a lot of things around that. We're in the process of negotiating. My goal is to get as much that the east side sub-area has asked for and voted on as possible. And so I will work on getting you as much information as would be helpful. Yeah, absolutely. Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, our next item on the agenda, we have no unfinished business. We have two new business items because our agenda was amended. The first item is AM number 26-065, adoption of ordinances to formalize updates to Redmond Municipal Code, Titles 10, 12, 13, and 15. And I have some ordinances to read before I go on. Ordinance number 3253, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending RMC 10, Vehicles and Traffic to clarify purpose and modernize the code's applicability. Ordinance number 3254, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending RMC 12, Streets and Sidewalks to clarify purpose and modernize the code's applicability. Ordinance number 3255, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending RMC 13, Water and Sewers to clarify purpose and modernize the code's applicability. Ordinance number 3256, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, amending RMC 15, Buildings and Construction to clarify purpose and modernize the code's applicability. Aaron Burt, Public Works Director, will introduce this item.
Good evening, council members. Continuation of discussion that we had at Committee of the Whole earlier today. I think we left it at Council President was talking about bringing this forward for adoption. Happy to answer any further questions council may have about these ordinances.
Thank you. Are there, we can go with questions of the director before we move this item. Are there any questions of the director? Councilmember Parsi?
I just have a couple of comments. I think I was able to address my questions during the Committee of the Whole. My only comments are that we prioritize in the implementation of these ordinances, we prioritize pedestrian safety, and we take the measures to communicate clearly with the public where they are and are not allowed to be driving micromobility devices on the sidewalk. So those would be my two hopes.
Right. Thank you.
One point of clarification there, council member. Did you say that we communicate that you don't have micromobility devices on the sidewalk?
My hope was that would be that we communicate clearly where people are allowed and not on the sidewalks.
Okay,
based on
thank
the prioritized pedestrian priority zones.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions of the director this evening? Councilmember Soni.
Sorry, this is just a kind of a quick question. This is specifically for the sidewalk standards. The code is removing exceptions for sidewalk construction. This will be required to meet all the city specifications. Is this going to impact the legacy neighborhoods where existing sidewalks doesn't meet the current widths and material? And will homeowners be forced to upgrade to the new standard if they perform minor repairs?
So essentially, in terms of sidewalk updates, whenever we make a change to the standard, then the homeowners would be responsible for the new standard moving forward.
Do they have to make the change?
In terms of, well, I mean, part of it depends on the scope and scale of the repair. Most of the time in the neighborhood zones where a sidewalk repair is needed, it's usually a replacement of a single panel. For example, excuse me, due to root intrusion or a panel being lifted up by a root. So it's not requiring like a full rebuild of the sidewalk. It's usually just a panel replacement.
Any other questions for the director? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve AM numbers 26-065 ordinance, and with ordinance numbers 3253, 3254, 3255, and 3256?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Council President.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate the discussion both in committee today and here, and giving everyone a chance to have their questions answered. For the listening public, I know we're running late, but I wanted to quickly frame. This is a body of work that has been ongoing with the department, and the council's been deliberating and studying these issues for a while now. The Redmond zoning code had a huge maintenance effort through the comprehensive planning process. It's now time for the municipal code, and that's much of what we are endeavoring to take on with this body of work. Really appreciate the director and the department. They also took on this work as part of an accreditation process that there will be news to share soon about. Additionally, I just want to reemphasize for the city that much of this code is in fact just helping the teams to do their work more efficiently, and for residents and businesses and everyone to interact with the code better. I know it's cliche because I've said it like 4 times now, but we're also updating, the code so that your horse-drawn carriages aren't going down 148th Avenue anymore, just to demonstrate that this really is a code maintenance effort that we've undertaken, all in support of Redmond 2050 and the Transportation Master Plan and the Safe Streets for All Action Plan and all of the great work that the community has been involved in to date. So look forward to adopting this effort here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote, starting with Council President Stewart.
Aye.
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 And that passes 7-0. Thank you so much, Director Byrd, for all your work. Would you like to make one more comment?
Yes, I would. I'm sorry, I forgot I was supposed to lead with this. As council is aware, over the past 2 years, the Redmond Public Works Department has taken on a national accreditation effort through the American Public Works Association. And last week, we were notified that we have received our accreditation. So we are now the 225th organization in the nation to receive this accreditation out of about 17,000 eligible Public Works Department. I am just so incredibly proud of the work and effort that the department undertook. We were evaluated on 376 distinct items for best practices and standards in the public works field. But additionally, not only was it the Public Works Department that achieved this, but it was a whole of city effort as well, because we were not able to achieve this without our partners in human resources and finance and everybody in the city, because it really demonstrates that the work that Public Works does is integrated with the city as a whole. So we're extremely thankful for everybody within the city. Probably we're shooting for next month or sometime early in June. We'll come back with one of the national representatives from APWA. They give us a nice big plaque, and we'll provide some more information and details to the council about really what it took us to get to this point. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for supporting us in this effort, and then also the council supporting us in this effort, in this work, because, for example, the updates to these title codes were a part of that endeavor. So thank you for your support on this.
Great. Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
Congratulations to your team and the whole city
Yeah,
on your work.
absolutely. Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is new business, AM number 26-066, adoption of an ordinance for an interim official control regulating commercial drone land use. Ordinance number 3257, an ordinance of the City of Redmond, Washington, imposing an interim official control to amend Article 1 zone-based regulations and Article 7 definitions of the Redmond zoning code to establish interim regulations for commercial drone land uses, adopting a work plan, setting the date for a public hearing on the interim official control, providing for severability, and establishing an immediate effective date. I'm sorry, I can hear you over here. Can you please be quiet? Darrell Lowe, Police Chief, will introduce this item. Oh, no, Mr. Glenn Coyle will introduce this item. Thank you, Glenn.
Hello. I wasn't expecting that, so just let me pull up my PowerPoint here and get some music playing or something in the background. Just want to provide just a little bit of visual here as we talk through this. All right, good evening. I am Glenn Coyle, Senior Planner in the Long Range Planning Team. We are here tonight to discuss a request for the Council to adopt an emergency ordinance known as interim official control to limit commercial drone ports in Redmond while permanent regulations are developed. All right. This slide summarizes the issues and recommendations before you. The city has started to see proposals for small and large-scale commercial drone operations in the city. The city has approved one project at the new Pagliacci Pizza in historic downtown. We have heard interest from multiple other companies about building drone ports in different parts of the city. The concerns staff identified are that current city zoning regulations do not address drone ports, such as what zones they can be located, height limits, hours of operations and setbacks, as well as buffers from sensitive uses such as residential. Lacking such regulations, staff may have no choice but to approve applications for drone ports without adequate measures in place to address their impacts. Establishing these interim controls for drone port land uses gives businesses the ability to proceed in a limited manner while the city develops permanent regulations that can address community concerns. So this slide shows the scope of the IOC interim, sorry, it's a late night for me. I'm usually asleep at this time. For the IOC, it is limited to the zoning code, namely around allowed uses and allowed zones. The IOC does not cover airspace regulation or management, business licensing, or updates to existing regulations, but the IOC will allow time to develop those items as the law allows. It should be strongly highlighted that the city is preempted by federal law to regulate drone operations in flight. Airspace is regulated by the FAA, and cities have very little room to regulate in this area. So no matter what action the city takes, commercial drones that meet FAA requirements will operate in Redmond. Okay, the IOC will restrict commercial drone ports to two zones, manufacturing park and industrial. Manufacturing park zone is located in two locations in the Sammamish Valley around Willows Road and in southeast Redmond. The industrial zone, we have just one, is located around Union Hill Road around the old Cadman Quarry. Commercial drone ports would be prohibited in all of the zones until final regulations are adopted. Okay, this slide shows the general timeline. The first part deals with the land use regulations, which is why we're here tonight. The IOC requires a work plan to give the city 1 year to work on final regulations and requires a public hearing within 60 days. If the IOC is approved, the public hearing will be held on June 2nd. In addition, the city will work on establishing business licensing for commercial drone operations and ports and will look into establishing an Office of Air Management to better coordinate drone operations in the city as is legally feasible. As noted, the IOC requires an adopted work plan to allow 1 year to finalize regulations. This slide shows the work plan. It would generally follow a similar process as any Type 6 zoning code update. We will conduct stakeholder engagement, and it will be reviewed by the technical committee. The Planning Commission will then review, hold a public hearing, and make a recommendation, with council taking final action no later than April of 2027. So with that, I will turn it back over to questions and discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Coyle. Are there any questions on this item? Councilmember Parsi.
Can you elaborate? You mentioned in the first slide that we are looking at small and large scale commercial drones. Would you be able to speak to the size and scale of and magnitude of what we're talking about?
One example is that Amazon, and I think this would kind of set off this conversation, was looking to create a fulfillment center that would include drone operations. There would be 6 launch pads, and they would fly, drones around, the east side here as a base of operation there. There's other, we know one other company called Zipline that's more, they're more like a Lime or Uber type operation. They partner with other retail businesses for delivery. They actually work with Pagliacci. They also have other clients, not necessarily in Redmond, but places that have locations in Redmond, like the Mendocino Farms, Panera, other locations like that. So that's kind of at least what we've heard. And of course, there could be others out there.
So you mentioned that we're expecting 6 launch pads. Would you be able to kind of speak a little bit more to the size of the launch pads that we're talking and also the size of the drones so we can kind of build a better picture?
I don't have specific visuals at the moment. I can tell you the drones themselves, my recollection, are about 5 by 6 feet. And the launch pad obviously would be a little bit bigger to accommodate that. So probably, if we're looking at a circle, a diameter of about, it's a diameter per ribbon, a diameter of about 6 feet. So I think that's a sense of the footprint, and then space in between other pads. Of course, a location to say for battery recharging, then a little bit setback for fences, et cetera. Can give you a sense of like a footprint of 10,000 square feet or so. Not to mention places where maybe trucks would have to come in to load and unload, things like that. Also, I should add one other thing is that there's also another model out there of actually launching from flatbed trucks or just setting up in parking spaces, which is, we haven't fully anticipated, we don't know all the different options that providers are coming up with. So, but that's at least what we've kind of seen out there, just doing some research.
Yeah, and this evening's idea is to just do what we can right now to put some regulations in place quickly in order to do more of this study through the Planning Commission. Councilmember Kritzer?
Thank you. Appreciate this being brought forward, especially as this is an emerging issue, and we do need some regulations, I think, in place while we take the time to be able to find out public perspectives on the use of this, and especially the kind of proliferation of drones in our city. I guess one question that I have that I had also posed to our planning director is whether we might consider whether we do this interim official control versus a moratorium until the time that we are able to fully build out these regulations. What are the pros versus cons of just putting a moratorium on having launch pads in the city of Redmond? I understand that means that probably there might be some right outside of our city. It wouldn't mean that we wouldn't still have drones in our city at that time, but it might give us the time to be able to do more thoughtful work on these regulations as you've laid out.
I'm going to have our city attorney answer that question.
Thank you for that question, Council Member Kritzer. In the staff's evaluation of presenting the IOC tonight, we took into consideration that the drones are out there and the commercial drone use is happening. One evaluation with the IOC versus the moratorium is that if there were a moratorium, we still can't prevent the flight of the commercial drones in Redmond. But the benefit of having the IOC is to give the city some consistent and predictable regulation right now by limiting the commercial drone pads to areas that make sense right now, manufacturing and industrial areas. It would give us the ability to limit it from places like shoreline areas, residential items like that, and to allow that commercial use to continue in a regulated fashion instead of having that moratorium where we know it would happen. We're giving it some parameters now, which is the benefit and the support of the IOC at this time.
Thank you. Could I ask a follow-up question, Mayor?
Yes.
So just a follow-up on that, actually, in terms of process, if we pass the interim official control tonight and we wanted to further refine it, could we pass an updated interim official control, or are we going to have the option to do this and then do the process that was laid out through the Planning Commission? One question that I have is just in terms of the scope of manufacturing park and industry zones, is just whether we might want to limit those zones further or be like a little bit more specific. If the goal is to limit, it still seems like it's covering quite a bit of space and quite a bit of area that is actually pretty close to a lot of our residential areas, which it seems like that is one of the things that we would want to address in terms of doing public outreach before moving forward to final regulations. The main question is, can we come back to do an updated interim official control, or is it, do we do this and then we wait?
Right. It would be, if you took action tonight, it would be effective. You do have a public hearing within 60 days where you would, the ask at that public hearing would be to make additional findings. And, but at this time, if you adopted it tonight, it would be as it is.
Councilmember Prakria.
Thank you for the presentation. It seems to me that, one of the purposes of this IOC is kind of as an interim compromise on regulating the usage of drones throughout our city. But my question is, the manufacturing park and industrial zones, do we know, or I know we've not had conversations yet, but do we know whether or not drone use, commercial drone use in these areas is even viable or of any interest to the agents that would want to use drones in Redmond? Like, is this even valuable to them?
I think that's a question for them to answer. Generally, the manufacturing park and industry zones allow, kind of heavier uses. When we initially had looked at this, and this kind of what also brings up this, was if without any controls, we have to kind of fit this use into what our existing definitions, allowed uses that currently exist. And as noted, uses change over time. For example, we no longer allow horse stables in downtown Redmond, but that was once an allowed use. But when we talk about like a brand new use like this, it's like, well, where does this fit? Is it a heliport, which is very restricted, but that's really big helicopters when that was envisioned. But, we could also say this more fits into like a similar operation like the UPS or FedEx or things like that, where there's, where we already allow existing kind of delivery kind of operations and things like that. So, so when we did look at kind of where we could allow this on an interim basis, we found that most likely it would be these zones, because there's already similar type of uses, but it's just not fully regulated to this specific kind of new category.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? Council President?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of my own questions, but I do appreciate the questions from Councilmember Kritzer, and I don't feel like we've fully unpacked that yet. So on the two questions, the first was, why did we rule out a moratorium? And what I heard in the response was what the IOC does. I didn't hear the comparison to a moratorium. So that's a good question. I hadn't thought of it, so I'd just love to hear more about that. And then the second question from Councilmember Kritzer was about, can we change the terms of the IOC after it's adopted potentially tonight? And I want to check my own understanding, because my understanding is that that is in fact part of the process with the public hearing, and that we may in fact do that. So I want to make sure I have that correct also.
Start with the latter question. Yes, so the first hearing happens within 60 days. That's the first milestone to evaluate the current language in the IOC that would, let's just say, be passed tonight. You at that time would hear from the public. You would make a decision on moving forward with the interim ordinance. You would adopt additional findings if you did so, and could propose amendments like you would with any ordinance. At that point, there would be 6-month markers, so you could adopt it for 6 months up to a year, and those 6-month markers essentially would be the milestones for further amendment. So you'd have a public hearing in 60 days. You could have another hearing in 6 months, and along the way, you would have the feedback in the work study, and then within 1 year, we would essentially and hopefully have a finalized version of the ordinance for consideration and adoption permanently at that point going forward.
Thank you. And regarding was it a moratorium evaluated?
I would turn it over to Glenn's team. I know that you had some more information on that.
So we were kind of operating with understanding that it was this kind of it's consistent with our Redmond 2050 goals, some of our different policies. At the same time, this is kind of a newer use, and generally speaking, we try to be more focused on our policies that support technology type forward businesses and things like that. As noted in your memo, if you had a chance to read it, we kind of cited a few different policies. One of them was in our economic vitality chapter of the comp plan, attracting EV2, attracting and retaining businesses that meet community needs. And we also have other policies around kind of technology forward type principles and stuff like that. So generally we operate with the principles, how we can make this work.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like the answer was no, because there was a bias for action in this direction, and that's okay. I just wanted to recognize that it was a good question. I hadn't considered it. I have a couple questions of my own, but I'll wait for round 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone who hasn't asked a question yet? Council Vice President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Glenn, for all the work that you brought forward on this. My question is clarification for those of us up here that might not know or that haven't had the conversations, or anybody who might be listening, because we're talking about getting used to the technology that's been here. I almost called it emerging technology, but this technology has been some time, but we haven't been living with it within our neighborhoods. So, and I understand of where we're looking to put the landing pads at is not in residential. But when we think about pizza delivery, there are community members where they're like, well, does that mean, like, is it going to be delivered to the person's balcony? Are we going to have drones going in between the buildings? And knowing that we can have purview over the land use, but not of airspace. And then questions coming in at what altitude does it become airspace?
Anything above 0. I've seen interpretations, and I'm not being facetious on that, that there's been a lot of interpretations and articles, from the FAA and some of the planning journals and things like that. And generally the interpretation is that once anything's off the ground, it's under the FAA's jurisdiction. So there isn't a cap at, like, it begins at 100 feet or 50 or anything like that. It's literally once it lifts off.
Council Member Forsyth.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. I know this had to have been a lot of work to get this to us. I'm in support of the interim control. I do have a lot of questions for when we have follow-up time on this. One of the main ones being when we see this again, you'd mentioned an office of something that the city would uphold?
Air management.
Air management. We have a lot of priorities that this council wants to see stood up within cities and department departments in the city, and an Office of Air Management has not crossed our radar. Not to use a pun, but I'm curious how we're going to pay for the staffing and pay for that. And I see Chief Lowe sneaking up behind you, so I'm guessing he has a little bit of an answer.
Chief Lowe has been bringing up this initiative as part of this. It's a bigger package. There's kind of 3 prongs to this. There's the land use, there's the business licensing, and then there's the Office of Air Management. So I'll defer to Chief Lowe on the latter part.
Yeah, so currently the aspect of airspace management will rest within the police department, within our DFR program, because there's a natural space there for it. As far as down the road and what it looks like, that would be for future determination once we actually see what the impact is of commercial drone delivery. Kind of going back to Council Vice President question, as far as I'll call it elevation and space, they'll be operating in the same airspace that our DFR program operates in, which is 200 to 400 feet above ground level. Typically, manned aviation is 400 feet and above, so we will be operating in similar space, and in large part, that is why I'll say we have a vested interest in this conversation, in this process, to ensure that we get it right, so that we can safely share the airspace with these commercial delivery operations.
And then the question around paying for these things, that will be part of the business licensing, that whoever's operating those drones will be paying for that service.
That was the answer I was anticipating. Thank you. Definitely a lot more questions, but in favor of this current stage as we're facing tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't asked a question yet? Councilmember Soni?
Just one basic. Do we have any other example from any other city, state that has implemented and how they did and what was the result?
Yeah, so both of these operations that have been in contact with the city are operating in a number of jurisdictions throughout the country, the closest one being down in Oregon. However, there are no other municipalities that have taken, I'll say, these innovative and proactive steps to establish an Office of Airspace Management to really I'll say manage, control, and interact with, I'll call it the inevitability of business and commerce, in this particular type of aspect. I'm trying to think what else. Yes, there are other places that are doing it. No cities have this format or framework in place. And even when we were approached by a couple of these companies, to Glenn's point, several other jurisdictions have simply tried to fit in this newer technology into existing codes and things. And the heliport example was very specific because that was the example they provided to us, saying X city fit us into the heliport aspect of it, and that is not the the appropriate space or language or use case for it, and that's also in part what brought this forward.
All right, let's see if anyone has another round of questions. Councilmember Parsi?
So I appreciate our bias for action and adoption of technology, but I think with every decision that we make, we need to be transparent in talking about the consequences of what are the downsides of the decisions that we make. From my awareness of drones, there are certain consequences that are there, so I want to kind of get your help with double checking if those are real concerns and if there is any additional ones to be thinking about. One of them is noise pollution. That has been something that I have heard from people who have concerns about, especially larger drones having noise at frequencies that are not usual for humans to hear and can be especially annoying even though they're not super loud. The second part is potential for collision with with people, with cars, with infrastructure, other things. Third concern is privacy. people being in their homes, people being in their backyards. Drones have cameras, and you mentioned that police drones have their cameras at horizontal view, but with other drones, we don't have that. So I think these are concerns to be talking about and make sure that we're making a decision with full awareness. So these are the concerns that I'm aware of. What else is on your mind, and what do you think about these concerns?
So clearly those concerns are valid, and that's why we stand here before you, is so that we as a city can address these issues proactively, as opposed to having these companies file applications. And as I've learned more about the planning process, to be non-conforming use within the space, because if we don't take action tonight, be it the IOC or the moratorium, they come in and file, then we don't have the ability to I'll say manage what it is they do. This here allows us to get the infrastructure in place by way of the zoning piece, the business and licensing piece, and then accept the applications should they come in. So that's what the purpose of this conversation is to address it with those 60 days. It allows time for public comment to truly wrap our I'll say heads and arms around it, to ensure that we do enact the appropriate zoning portions, the appropriate business licensing portions of it, so that they can operate safely and effectively here within the city, and that we can ensure the safety of the community.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Thank you. I would just second, I think in particular, I think the point that Councilmember Parsi just made specifically around privacy. We've been in a lot of discussion with our community in recent times around concerns of different technologies that has the ability to do surveillance, or to be able to take video, so really want to think carefully about this. And I've also heard from folks just in some of the use of drones that has gone in our city, of seeing drones outside their windows and being concerned. I think oftentimes is our police drone, which, as Councilmember Parsi noted, we've talked about and has specific instructions to be able to not be looking into individual residences. However, I do think that we're entering a new territory with companies operating these within our city. So I guess I am, if we're going to do the interim official control, to be able to have this conversation, the fact that we're going to have the hearing in 60 days, to be able to look further at this and amend it further, I can support that. So that way we have some regulations there. Personally, I probably would prefer a moratorium, because I think it would make sense for us to just not permit this use until we have the time to talk about what kinds of uses we want, and to be able to do some of the work both on the business licensing side and those regulations, as well as the land use side. So I will just put that out there. If there's the option for us to pass this tonight and continue the conversation about potential moratorium until we are able to fully process these regulations, I would support that.
Our city attorney would like to respond about the moratorium.
Thank you for that comment. I just, in general, just wanted to piggyback off Chief Lowe's comment about the proposed ordinance for this purpose, and understanding the concerns from both Councilmember Kritzer and Councilmember Parsi tonight on all of those other valid concerns. This IOC, and whether it be an IOC for this purpose or a moratorium has been discussed, but we're really looking at it from a very limited purpose tonight for the commercial land use of drones, the landing and the takeoff. And the purpose of that, firstly for that, is that we wouldn't want companies to vest or get grandfathered in a use that we wouldn't want down the line. And it is very limited to the zoning code for this purpose. The noise ordinance, the business licensing, other areas of concern that are all valid, that city staff will continue to vet and research and bring forward for discussion will probably run on a parallel track to this, and that doesn't vest. This portion we wanted to get out in front of, as there's been interest in the community to do it for the commercial purpose. The public hearing, I just wanted to clarify that the public hearing would be focused on the IOC proposed language for commercial land use in the areas that it's for areas. It wouldn't be an opportunity to expand upon noise or other things that may not fit within the zoning code as proposed, and not to open it up to other avenues of code that would be presented in a different path, if that makes any sense. But thank you.
Thank you. I'll just say that was clear to me, and I think it does give us the opportunity, should we want to explore limiting the scope of the allowed zones further within that area, specifically to land use. But I think my point was whether we decide to allow this land use when we haven't done those parallel tracks. So that's all. Thanks.
Council President.
Thank you. And again, it is not, the idea of a moratorium is not something that I had considered, but it is a fair point to take the time to figure it out before allowing the uses writ large. Where we are today is that I will support the IOC moving forward, because now the purpose of discussing this tonight is to get ahead of the vesting, as was mentioned. So we are, I fear, here now and need to deal with that. I'll make a couple more comments, but first, Glenn and Chief, thanks for the presentation. We don't do this very often, interim official control only once in recent years. This would be a skill that we haven't exercised in a while. We, of course, will have the hearing and be eager to get community feedback on the land use and potential for future regulations. My question is, we're doing this tonight. How is the public going to hear about the potential action tonight and be prepared to engage with us? What's the communications plan supporting this?
I can speak to that. If this ordinance passes, we actually, I worked with communications to prepare a city webpage on this that has, kind of a summary of kind of what you see in the PowerPoint here and in the ordinance. We also created a FAQ, kind of just with some of the similar questions that some of the council members have asked, and try to be proactive to answer. In addition to that, we can also work with communications if we want a little bit more widespread. It depends, of course, on what community feedback we get initially, but we also have our different newsletters. We do have a planning commission meeting tomorrow, so if this does pass, I'll also kind of let them know there that that's going to be something that will be potentially coming up. We do. We did list kind of a one-year work plan, and that it does include stakeholder engagement. So some of the thoughts was like our Let's Connect page, perhaps community survey, other things like that. And then, of course, all the legally required public hearings like that, including the one at council here. Other additional ones the council may hold, and of course, the other planning commission is legally required to hold a public hearing, sometime in the future. And we're happy to also help with any other engagement that, is suggested. So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Here's what's important to me, Glenn. We have a 17-page ordinance in front of us, and if we're going to adopt this today, I'd like the public to be able to see it tomorrow.
Yes, and that would,
Yeah.
once it's, certified and signed, and we get the copy here from the clerk, we'll have that also posted on there and linked.
Great. And like I said, I think the decision in front of us now is to move forward. And I do appreciate the thought that has gone into preparing the materials for tonight. We are set to consider, we haven't moved it yet, but we're set to consider the ordinance. I'm on slide 5 of your presentation. We're familiar with attacking comprehensive problems and adaptive challenges with multiple tools in our toolkit. I just want to be really clear that if the council does adopt the land use regulations tonight, we are not yet adopting business licensing regulations or any future office. That is all much to be studied, and I appreciate that Councilmember Forsyth, called forward that there's still a lot of questions on that, but I do want that to be clear for the public. For my part, we already have drones in our community. We have drones in our neighborhoods. We see them, and residents write to us about drones that are perceived to be suspicious. I always just recommend folks call 911 if they have a concern. Drones are being used in my neighborhood to inspect new housing that is coming along, so they are in fact being used. We do have really limited, just to circle back to the conversation with my colleagues here at the dais, we have really limited tools to regulate how they're used, but at least where new commercial operations, it's a good solid start. So I will support the IOC tonight and look forward to communicating it with the public and hearing lots of feedback back. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments this evening? Councilmember Procria?
Sorry, I know it's late. Just one more clarifying question. So our city attorney just mentioned that part of the rationale for this was making sure that, commercial drone use was not grandfathered in under some conditions that could be deemed unfavorable. If we adopt this IOC, would we grandfather in the land use regulations for the manufacturing park and industrial zones? Kind of similar to Councilmember Kritzer's questions of, could we revert back from this if we actually find that, maybe there's too much noise nearby homes with these manufacturing park zones, or maybe there's some other concern that we figure out later. But are we stuck with this?
I'll take a shot at that answer, and I'll defer to the attorney after. When you say revert, reverting would mean there would be no regulation in place, and that would just allow anywhere in the city. Our manufacturing, Redmond's actually a rather small city in area. I can pull the map back up. Our manufacturing park and industry zones are the only zones right now in the city that doesn't allow residential. We have a business park zone, which, that's a whole nother discussion about whether a residential is allowed there. But beyond that, everything else in our city is neighborhood residential or mixed use. So really this regulation is about keeping it in non-residential areas, which is why we want to have this interim code. Whereas if we don't have it, it expires. It really just opens it up to be allowed anywhere in the city. So.
Did that answer your question?
But I guess, are we grandfathered in with this interim code? Let's say we adopted a different IOC that was like a quarter of the area permitted.
Yes, if someone vested, if you pass this and someone vests in that area, and then after going through the process, the choice is made to restrict it even more, then whoever had set up in that would be grandfathered in. Yes, that's true. But at this time, there's nothing to grandfather in, so anyone's can set up anywhere. So it's a place and time, right? So you pass this tonight, that means no one can do this outside of those areas that are shown on the map. And then let's say in 6 months, you choose to restrict that even more. If someone had set up in the area that you were now further restricting, they would be grandfathered in there.
Okay, but we still have that opportunity to further restrict.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. All right, Councilmember Parsi.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understand this part correctly. So if we put this plan together with a current map and someone puts a landing zone in this, and then we further restrict the map, would that landing area be grandfathered in? Okay, so I'm kind of thinking now we have either two very large zones that we're permitting tonight, or we have the option of a moratorium. Do we have an intermediate option to have a much smaller zone to allow something to kind of still move forward with a plan, and kind of keep that discussion open with businesses like Amazon who want to do this, but kind of not have an option to grandfather people into some very large area that we may later decide to walk back from.
I will answer for you, Glenn. The staff worked on this and looked at our Redmond 2050 plan and used that as a guide to where it would be most appropriate for this, and that's what you see before you. So this is based on staff recommendation of where the most appropriate place is for this at this time. I'm going to go to Council Member Forsyth and then Council Member Kritzer.
Thank you. Thank you for the conversation. I do believe we would still have council would still have the authority, say, if we wanted to just limit to the Sammamish Valley manufacturing zone, we could do that. Is that correct, or would that be considered spot zoning?
I think that was a question that would need a little bit further analysis. I would note in the ordinance that beyond just the 2 zones allowed, there's additional restrictions that establish buffers. That's a pretty exhaustive list that includes residential, parks, daycares, I'm probably not going to mention them all, government facilities, police facilities, fire facilities. And as you add these buffers, it makes the amount of available properties less and less. Not to mention that Redmond doesn't have very much vacant land either, so.
Right. I think my concern, and gauging off my colleagues, there are 2 industrial areas and manufacturing areas towards the east of our community that are actually near a lot of homes. So I think that might be where some of that concern is coming from. So just the question of, I believe it would be within our scope to restrict, but with what's in front of us tonight and the urgency, I feel like that's something that we can continue talking about within the 60 days in the public hearing.
Councilmember Kritzer.
Just to build on this conversation, one potential thing we could consider as well would be, just to make it clean, would be if we wanted to strike manufacturing park and just limit it at this point to industrial, but we could within the hearing consider whether we want to expand it to to add the manufacturing park. But if we pass tonight just with industrial, then it would just be in that image. If you want to go to the slide where we could see the map. Oh, we're on it right now. Great. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong slide. The darker kind of red area. If we wanted to just pass it with that as the area that is in our interim official control, then we could revisit whether we want to include the manufacturing park areas. Just as a suggestion, I don't know if my colleagues would be interested in that, but and if the staff has any feedback on if we did that.
Council President.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I think that we already have drones in our city, and they're near homes already. And the ultimate feedback loop is going to be whether or not residents use the services that provide delivery via drone. That'll ultimately be the most important feedback loop, or most telling feedback loop. As I reflect on kind of this tension here, and this is also part of the process that we don't do this very often and make these decisions with a one touch like this on the dais, and so that's why I'm glad that we are having the full conversation that we need to have. One of the, I'm channeling former Councilmember Carson a little bit in our discussions throughout Redmond 2050 about preserving space for business to take place. And if this is the kind of business that's going to take place in Redmond, I guess what I'm trying to communicate is I don't have concern or a need tonight to reduce the amount of space that the interim official control oversees. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just mention yet again, this is only about the landing and takeoff. It has absolutely no regulation with the use of drones. It is just about landing and taking off. And so I think what I'm hearing from the council is a lot of concerns about just drone use in general. And that's not an area based on the FAA what their jurisdiction is. Right now, it's just about landing and taking off. So I just want to be clear. And I know it's getting late, so I'm going to ask, Councilmember Parsi can ask one more question, and then we need to kind of figure out how we're going forward from here. Councilmember Parsi.
I just want to kind of address something that Council President mentioned. So the current drones that we are seeing are much smaller drones. We are seeing drones, but the scale of them are far different from the scales of drones that will be doing delivery. We just heard that there are 5-foot kind of size drones, so they are kind of a different beast to tackle. So I do want to, I don't feel 100% comfortable with kind of a much larger plan, and I would prefer to start small and expand. I am totally in agreement that we should start somewhere, but I feel like the current plans are very large, and I would feel more comfortable with a smaller plan that we would scale later from in a couple of months. If it's just a couple of months, I don't see why kind of we should start so large. So.
Thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to add? I think you had mentioned that there's actually a lot more strict restrictions in the ordinance about buffer zones and all of that as well.
Yes,
so
it's
not actually as big of a space as it looks on the map.
In our shoreline environments, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Is there, thank you very much, Chief, as well, for this. Is there a motion? Let me get to my script. Is there a motion to approve AM number 26-066 / ordinance number 3257?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Parkria.
I think I would like to second Councilmember Parsi's comments just now about.
Point of order, we have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
Oh,
yes.
make an amendment. Okay, in that case, no. Actually, I will make an amendment to strike the manufacturing park zones from the permitted locations for the IOC.
Is there a second on this amendment?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the amendment to strike manufacturing parks from this interim official control? Council President.
Yeah, at this time, I'd like to make sure that we can pull the ordinance up onto the screen so that both ourselves and the viewing public, if we're going to strike a piece of language, it'd be really helpful to know in the 17 pages just for ourselves as well as the viewing public who doesn't have this document in front of them. Thank you.
Yes, Council President.
Yeah.
Well, wait till it comes up. Councilmember Parkria, would you like to speak to this amendment?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the text as well. I have. Can you give me like 1 minute? I need to figure out which text to strike. I don't have this like pre-booked out.
So there's a couple of sections in the code. The first is the non-residential use table. And as you can see in our regular ordinance format, it's bolded and underlined and doesn't have the header, but this shows all the different zones in the city. And they're on the, kind of towards the right, there are two Ps. One refers to the manufacturing park zone and one refers to the industry zone. and P refers to permitted. In addition, there's a new section for drone land uses that I believe also states the two zones that this would be potentially permitted in.
Okay, then my amendment would be to strike the P from both of those tables for the manufacturing park zones.
Would be to strike manufacturing park zones completely from this ordinance. And so Councilmember Pacria, so going back to you, and can you share the why of in striking that?
Yeah, no, I just think this gives us more flexibility, right? If this is only for a hearing that's going to be held in 60 days, I don't see any downside from a business perspective, from an economic perspective, in being more cautious in our approach about where we allow drone takeoffs and drone landings in the city before anything is grandfathered in, and we're not allowed to make further changes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion on this amendment? Councilmember Kritzer.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this amendment. I think, as I mentioned before, it does make sense to start with a smaller amount, and then we can study this and have our public hearing and be able to gather more findings, in particular on what is the appropriate land use scope here. So I think it makes sense to do this and appreciate Councilmember Pacria bringing it forward.
Councilmember Forsyth?
Is it appropriate to ask staff a question at this point?
If it's in regards to striking to this amendment, yes. Yes.
Mr. Coyle, what downsides do you potentially see to this approach?
I would say that I would say that the industry zone is very small. I think there's only a couple of parcels there. One of them is still the Cadman operation or now it's Heidelberg. Sorry, I always refer to it as Cadman, old Redmond County. But nonetheless, the industry zone is just limited to a few parcels around Union Hill Road there. I think the manufacturing park, this is more where the similar uses are. I think when we mentioned our staff analysis that it's very similar to uses like UPS, FedEx, things like that, which is where generally those uses are a manufacturing park. And again, we have limited land in the city, so my only concern is that if we do still support this, that we might be buffering out any potential uses.
Thank you.
It would be almost creating a no space to do this in the city then?
I would say from my initial analysis, yes, that's correct.
Council Vice President Nueva Camino.
Thank you. I comment on the motion that's currently on the floor. I feel that we've already pared this down. This is already going from no regulation to having some regulation. Echoing Council President bringing this up, hearkening back to former colleague, Councilmember Carson, in not wanting to limit business. And I think that we've said it enough times on this dais that we are a balance of innovation and humanity. And I think that as proposed, as originally brought forward, that this IOC is going to do that and does it well, because we still do have relationships with our business partners as well as our residents. Looking at the graph as far as where the constraints are in both areas and that there are limited parcels, I'm keeping in mind that whether it's that pink block or the reddish block, either of those, the parcels that are accessible within those are so limited that I'm comfortable as as the ordinance, as the IOC stands, as it was presented.
Thank you. Councilmember Parsi?
I support the ordinance because I support the amendment because I think it doesn't close the door on expansion. It just controls the starting point. So I feel like as we make this decision on this amendment, I don't want you to think that, hey, we are limiting this right now. It's just for a few months until we learn more. It's much easier to expand as we learn more than to walk back from difficult decisions. And I don't want to make a decision that would cause the community to pay for something that we may make a decision quickly. So with that in mind, I strongly support the amendment to make sure that we first hear from the community before we kind of expand the plan.
Councilmember Soni?
If I may, I don't know if that will be valid, but if I may make another amendment.
No. We have an amendment on the floor, so we have to, you can only speak to this amendment, and then we'll take a vote. Whether or not it passes, then you can propose another amendment. That would be, yeah, thank you. Councilmember Prakriya?
Yeah, just to add on, I really don't think we lose anything by doing this because it's only a 60-day period until we learn more, and we haven't even approved any business permits yet. So it's very unlikely that in that 60-day period we would have, some business permit approved and then commercial drone use within these manufacturing park zones taking place at such a fast rate. And I think the downside, the expected value here is positive because the potential downside is that our community pays for this for generations if there's a possible risk to having drone takeoff, drone landing in any way close to homes or in a larger area where that may not be the case. We're not saying that we'll never allow this. We're just saying a small moratorium of 60 days until we learn more.
Councilmember Forsyth?
I really appreciate all of the thoughtful conversation tonight. This is a big challenge that we haven't faced in quite a while. I was inclined to support the amendment, but looking at an aerial view of the map that's provided to us in our packet very clearly shows the area, but when you look at it on Google Maps and you see what's actually in that area, it's not an area that is likely to be used for those purposes. Like Mr. Coyle mentioned, it is much more likely for, say, the UPS area or Costco. So I will not be supporting the amendment tonight, but very, very, very much appreciate the deep thought and conversation.
Council President.
Thank you. I will not be supporting the amendment and also appreciate the conversation. One thing that strikes me about this is if we could do this the normal way, which is to study an issue several times before adopting new code, we would choose that path. Now we are considering this as an interim official control because the threat is very real that we could end up giving land to uses that we will later regret. So I will, that is why the tactic itself is being used, and I think that's important just in some of the assertions that I heard in the conversation here. Again, appreciate the conversation. I'll be voting no on this amendment.
And Councilmember Kritzer.
Thank you. Appreciate all the conversation on this. I just wanted to put on the record that I do really appreciate what we have in Redmond 2050 and our vision that we're working towards on creating an innovative and thriving business environment here in Redmond. And I hope, and I will be supporting the amendment. It doesn't mean that I don't foresee us wanting to be able to explore new technology being able to thrive in Redmond, since that's such an important part of Redmond. But I think as some of my other colleagues mentioned, it doesn't hurt for us to pass this with a more limited scope now. That gives us the time to go to our community and to look at this, because I would say this is different than a UPS truck going out to deliver mail. It's a different way of delivering goods, and it's a different experience for our residents. And I think we should take our time with it.
Thank you. This will be a roll call vote on the amendment to remove manufacturing part from the interim official control. So if you vote aye, it's to remove manufacturing park. If you vote nay, it's to not remove. All right. Starting with Council President.
No.
No. No.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Motion fails 3-4. Thank you. So we're back to the original amendment. Any ordinance? Thank you. Back to the original ordinance. Any other amendments? Seeing none. Is there another amendment?
Would you consider, I move to amend by striking the two zones, manufacturing and
industrial
zone.
So I'm sorry, what is your amendment?
My amendment is to strike the industrial zone.
Is there a second? Seeing no second, the motion dies on the floor. Any further comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Council President Stewart.
Aye.
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 Councilmember Kritzer? Can't hear you. Can you do a
Can you
thumb?
hear me?
Yes,
Hold
we
on a
can.
sec.
We can hear you now.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Motion, thank you. The ordinance passes 7-0. Thank you all. Thanks for the good conversation, and thank you, team. We look forward to seeing next steps and having more information around this as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. We do not have an executive session, but we do have a closed session, which is our last item on the agenda, is closed session for labor negotiations, RCW 4230-144B. Without objection, the business meeting will adjourn at this time, and council will go into a closed session. Per state law, public attendance is not allowed in the closed session. Closed session participants attending remotely, please leave this meeting and join the closed session team's meeting. Thank you all.